Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376 Vision and Success. The next day. Afternoon. After another day of practice, his illusion sword art had made a breakthrough as he wished. Opening the panel and looking at the LV700 illusion sword art, Qingming felt that a series of insights emerged in his mind. Qingming stood up, pulled out his long sword, and then waved the long sword in his hand like a beginner. At first, his movements were slow, but as time went by, his speed became faster and faster, and in the end, he could not even see clearly. At a certain moment, a ray of light appeared on the longsword in Qingming's hand, giving people a dreamlike and unreal feeling. At this time, anyone who saw this ray of blade light would have a moment of trance. And this is the change after the illusion sword art was promoted to the perfect state. At LV6, although he could attach illusions to it at any time when performing sword art, it was always a late attack. Although he could also predict it, the enemy could also choose to dodge it. Now, as long as he wants, he can always attach illusions to the blade, so that the art can move with his heart. At this time, unless the enemy ignores his long sword from the beginning, he will definitely be hit. And with his current reaction speed, even if the enemy is only in a trance for a moment, he can seize the opportunity and give the opponent a heavy blow. It can be said that once he does this, the enemy will almost certainly be at a disadvantage in close combat. However, this move is not without disadvantages. This method of maintaining illusions consumes a lot of chakra and mental energy. Even he cannot perform it all the time. Therefore, he will not use it easily unless it is necessary. With this thought, Qingming retracted his longsword and began to think about the next arrangement. Now, his illusion sword art has been perfected, and his instant sword art has also gone through most of the LV6 stage. Maybe it's time to develop the shadow sword art. Thinking back to the beginning, when his sword art was still at LV5, he began to think about the future development. Finally, after careful consideration, he had three ideas, which were to develop the shadow sword art, the illusion sword art and the instant sword art. Now, one of the latter two has been completed, and the other is about to be completed, but the shadow sword technique is still missing. According to his idea, the development of this technique requires reference to the Sharingan shadow clone technique, and this technique is the secret of the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, and few people can do it. At that time, he also wanted to borrow the power of the Sharingan to copy and learn from the opponent or Orochimaru, but he never had the opportunity. Now, he can only use another method, that is, to develop it himself. After all, the foundation of the Sharingan shadow clone technique is still on the shadow clone technique. And now, his shadow clone technique has reached level 5, and he is almost qualified to do in-depth development on it. If successful, he can not only obtain a very useful A-level skill, but also put the envisioned shadow sword technique on the right track. By then, the phantom sword technique, shadow sword technique, and instant sword technique will cooperate with each other, and he will no longer have an opponent in close combat. And this will also allow him to take a big step forward on the road to invincibility. Slurp. Qingming wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, and without thinking any more, crossed his hands, formed the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique again. Bang! A cloud of chakra smoke exploded, and 8 shadow clones appeared in the field. Qingming asked 7 of them to continue their previous training, and the last one began to study the Sharingan shadow clone technique. In a flash, another week passed. In the evening of this day, near the Eagle's Beak Cliff, on this area, Qingming was suspended in the air, and a pair of 2-meter-long chakra wings extended from his back, like a pair of real wings, holding him up and preventing him from falling. Qingming opened the panel and saw that there was an additional skill on it, Wind Style, Wind Wings, Level 0, 1/100. That's right, after spending nearly a month, he finally successfully developed the flying ninjutsu, Wind Style, Wind Wings. At this time, the light blue wings behind him were the external manifestation of this technique. As for the effect, because he has not yet entered the door, it has no other effect except making him float. If this is placed on other people, it cannot be considered a success at all. However, it can be considered a success on him. There is no other reason, because the panel has already recognized this skill. Next, He just needs to keep working hard to make the effect of this skill gradually tend to the direction he wants. Thinking of this, Qingming released the wind style, wind wings. The next moment, the wings behind him disappeared, and the whole person fell on the sea. Qingming did not hesitate at all, immediately raised his hands, crossed them to form the Ren seal, and performed the shadow clone technique. The next moment, 20 shadow clones appeared on the scene. Qingming looked at them and said directly, "Let's start." Hearing this, the 20 shadow clones did not say any nonsense, and they all formed seals together, mobilized the chakra in their bodies, and condensed a pair of chakra wings behind them. It was the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. The breeze flowed through it, making them float into the air one by one. Qingming himself was not idle either. He also performed the wind style, wind wings, and came to the mid-air, carefully feeling the changes in the ninjutsu. Time passed by minute. It was seen that Qingming and the 20 shadow clones floated up and down from time to time, occasionally stopping to think. At the beginning, everyone's movements were exactly the same, but as time went on, differences began to appear, until half an hour later, everyone's movements were different. It was at this time that Qingming released the shadow clone technique. The next moment, a large amount of practice experience and memory poured into his mind. Qingming tried hard to digest and absorb the knowledge in it, and transformed it all into the proficiency on the panel. Then, he had a deeper understanding of the wind style, wind wings. After a moment, Qingming opened his eyes and said to himself, "Come again." While speaking, he performed the shadow clone technique again. Bang! Another 20 shadow clones appeared on the field. On the basis of what they had just done, they began to try to practice and improve the wind style, wind wings again. Soon, everyone floated up again. Compared with half an hour ago, their movements this time were much lighter, just like a bird coming to the air. In the past, Qingming had never used all his strength on a skill. Now, he has experienced the bug. Although he cannot split 1,000 shadow clones like Naruto and enjoy 1,000 times the training speed, his progress is not slow with the feature of the Proficiency Panel 1 certificate, Permanent Certificate. In order to maximize the effectiveness of the panel, he will release the shadow clone technique every half an hour in the future, summarize the experience, and convert it into proficiency. Then, on this basis, further improve it. So, in just 2 hours before and after the sun sets, he successfully mastered the wind style, wind wings. Moreover, he walked back a distance. Now, his wind style, wind wings can do more than just let people float. Chapter 377 Flight and Arrangement. Qingming raised his hands, formed seals in a methodical manner, mobilized the chakra in his body, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wings of wind. The next moment, a pair of light blue wings appeared behind him. Compared with the initial stage, after being promoted to level 1 and entering the door, his chakra wings have undergone many changes. Among them, the most obvious is the length. It has directly changed from the original almost 2 meters to less than 1.5 meters now, which looks much smaller. However, although its length has shortened, the effect is much stronger. With a thought, a stream of wind-style chakra sprayed out from the wings. Then, Qingming's feet left the sea surface and the whole person floated up. Chakra continued to spray, and his figure became higher and higher. Soon, he was far away from the sea surface and came to the sky. Looking at the Eagle's Beak cliff that was shrinking in the distance below, Qingming instinctively had a palpitation. This is the normal reaction of creatures living on land suddenly coming to high altitudes, commonly known as fear of heights. Although Qingming has been practicing wind style, wind wings for a while, he has never been to such a high place. It is really the first time for a young lady to get on a sedan chair. Inhale, exhale, taking a deep breath and then slowly exhaling, Qingming overcame the fear in his heart and stopped paying attention to the bottom. With a thought, he controlled the chakra wings behind him and flapped them gently. The next moment, his figure flew forward. That's right, when his wind style, wind wings was promoted to level 1, he could already fly. It's this flying speed. Qingming tried for a while and estimated a result, which is about 10 meters per second, that is, 36 kilometers per hour. This speed is the level of electric cars in the previous life. In this life, it is not as fast as the running speed of most ninjas. In addition, there is the consumption of chakra. The consumption of chakra when performing wind style, wind wings is quite intense. Even Qingming felt a little painful. Of course, it is not without advantages. At the very least, when performing the wind style, wind wings to fly, You basically don't have to pay attention to the terrain below. If you go in a straight line, it will undoubtedly save a lot of time. In this way, plus it is only level 1 now, it can be continuously improved as the level increases. It can be said that the future is promising. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming looked at the sky. The sun had already set and night was about to fall. Simply, he didn't stay any longer and flew straight to the direction of the Eagle's Beak Cliff. However, as soon as he approached, several Konoha ninjas rushed out from behind the bunker, took out kunai, looked up at him, and shouted, "Who is it?" Hearing this, Qingming looked in the direction of the voice, opened his Sharingan, and found that it was a few sentinels of the stronghold. He was a little happy that he had just successfully developed the flying ninjutsu, but he forgot that this side has always been the focus of surveillance in the stronghold. He flew over so swaggeringly, and he would naturally be noticed. Maybe I should learn a ninjutsu to hide my body. A thought came to Qingming's mind, but he was quickly suppressed. Now is not the time to think about these things. In order to avoid causing greater misunderstandings, Qingming flapped his wings and flew down. "Captain," after he landed, several people saw his appearance and said in surprise. "Yes, it's me." Qingming nodded, responded, and then said the secret code at the first time. Here, it is naturally impossible to rely on appearance to identify the identity. After all, whether it is transformation technique or some other ninjutsu, it can change the appearance of the ninja. Therefore, things like secret codes are very common. It was only after Qingming said the secret code that these people were completely relieved. Then, someone asked curiously, "Captain, did you succeed?" While speaking, the man looked at the chakra wings behind him that had not yet dissipated. Hearing this, Qingming glanced at the other party and found that he was a young ninja from the Uchiha clan, and he immediately understood. Only people of the same clan would ask this question. After all, no matter in which world, training is a relatively private matter, especially for ninjas who regard intelligence as life. Although his previous attempt to develop flying ninjutsu was not kept secret, many people in the base knew about it. However, they would not ask casually. Only those who belonged to the same clan as him and had a close relationship with him would ask rashly. Perhaps because he was happy, Qingming was not unhappy. He nodded lightly and walked away. Looking at his back as he left, Uchiha Qingming said with envy, "I wish I could be like the captain someday." Hearing this, several people around sneered and said, "Qingming, don't dream. The captain is a real genius, so don't even think about it." "Yes, Qingming, although you and the captain belong to the same Uchiha clan, I don't think you can catch up with the captain," someone echoed. Hearing this, Uchiha Qingming's face flushed red, and the young man's unyielding temperament was aroused. He stiffened his neck and said, "Just wait, sooner or later I will surpass the captain and prove it to you." Ha ha ha. Hearing this, everyone laughed, obviously not thinking he could do it. Qingming didn't know about the discussion of several people. After answering Uchiha Qingming's questions, he dispersed his chakra wings and went straight back to his residence. In the room, Qingming washed up, got some food, and after filing his stomach, he began to think about the next path. Now that his flying ninjutsu has been successfully developed, he just needs to work hard and it's time to make plans for the future. After thinking for a long time, Qingming made an arrangement. First, according to the previous plan, he studied the secret technique of telepathy and strengthened the information communication ability between the main body and the shadow clone. Secondly, he prepared for the development of the shadow sword technique and studied the Shuriken shadow clone technique based on the shadow clone technique. Finally, and most importantly, he contacted the clan and asked them to send some books and scrolls about developing Earth attribute chakra. That's right, he was ready to develop the fourth chakra attribute. The successful development of wind style, wind wings made him feel that his mastery of wind attribute chakra had risen to a new level. Moreover, it is difficult to make great progress in a short period of time. Therefore, after thinking about it, he decided to develop the fourth chakra attribute. As for why he chose the earth attribute instead of the lightning attribute, the reason is simple, that is, he lacks defense. It is true that his physique attribute is very high now, and his physical strength exceeds that of ordinary ninjas by a large margin, but he is still a mortal after all, and he will still bleed and die if injured. Therefore, in order to make up for this shortcoming, he plans to learn one or two defensive ninjutsu. Compared with lightning escape, earth escape is undoubtedly better at this. At the beginning, Kakuzu's earth escape, earth spear left a deep impression on him. Unfortunately, he had not yet developed the earth attribute chakra at that time, so he could not copy it. However, he believed that with a 1,000-year heritage of the Uchiha clan, it should not be a problem to find one or two similar ninjutsu. Of course, there are also ninjutsu such as lightning escape chakra mode and lightning escape, which is good at defense, but more lightning escape ninjutsu are still known for their strong offensiveness. So, it is better not to embarrass the Uchiha clan. As for whether the Uchiha clan would agree, it was a joke. He was now the face of the Uchiha clan. How could the other party not agree? With this thought in mind, Qingming took out a pen and paper and began to write a letter. The operation was safe. Update recovery. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378, Out in Full Force. The next day, early in the morning, Qingming summoned Uchiha Qingming and handed him the letter he had written. What is this? Uchiha Qingming looked at the letter in his hand with a puzzled look on his face. This is what I wrote to Elder Huaxun. Please pass it to him for me. Facing the other party's puzzled eyes, Qingming spoke. Elder Huaxun? Yes, okay. Hearing this, Uchiha Qingming responded. Without asking what the content of the letter was, he bit his thumb directly, and then formed the 5 seals of Haisu Yushen Wei in sequence, using blood as a guide, and performed the summoning technique. Bang! The next moment, accompanied by a cloud of chakra smoke, a small ninja cat that looked like Fat Orange in his previous life appeared. This is exactly Uchiha Qingming's summoned beast. Meow! As soon as this ninja cat appeared, it called out, then opened its mouth and yawned loudly. It can be seen that it did not sleep well last night. Uchiha Qingming ignored all this. He squatted down, looked at the orange cat, and said, Zyaju, please do me a favor. Seeing Zyaju looking over, Uchiha Qingming handed over the letter and said, Here, this is it. Help me give it to Elder Huaxun. As he said that, he stuffed the letter into the orange cat's mouth. Seeing this, the orange cat rolled his eyes humanely, opened his mouth reluctantly, swallowed the letter, and disappeared. Looking at its disappearing back, Uchiha Qingming stood up and said to Qingming, Okay, Qingming, Zyaju will be able to deliver the letter in at most 1 day. Yeah, Qingming nodded. Afterwards, the two chatted for a few more words and went about their own business. No, to be more precise, it was Uchiha Qingming who went to do things. After Qingming had breakfast, he went to practice in the forest behind the base. These days, the hidden mist village is rarely quiet, so he naturally has to seize the time to practice. In a flash, another 2 days passed. This evening, in the forest, Qingming finished a day of practice, took back all the shadow clones, and carefully felt the gains of the past 2 days. After the successful development of the flying ninjutsu, he used all the 7,000 chakra points that he had used to develop the ninjutsu to improve his proficiency. Now, 2 days have passed, and his proficiency has increased from LV1, 70 out of 200, to LV2, 35 out of 500. After being promoted to LV2, his wind style, wind wings, has changed again. Among them, the most obvious is the flying speed. Compared with LV1, it has doubled directly, from 10 meters per second to 20 meters per second, which is equivalent to 72 kilometers per hour. There is no doubt that this is not slow. The most important thing is that the chakra required to maintain such a fast speed has not increased significantly. If the chakra consumed at 36 kilometers per hour is unacceptable, then 72 kilometers per hour is still tolerable. After all, sometimes time is life. It is nothing to spend more chakra to save half the time. In addition, the most obvious thing he felt was that his body was on the verge of transformation again. After strengthening for almost 40 days, he had accumulated enough foundation. In 3 or 4 days at most, he would reach the critical point. At that time, as long as he opened the main Gekyo Sharingan and stimulated the power of human control to guide it, he could easily break the shackles and make the physique attribute reach a higher level. In this way, he would have enough chakra to develop the heart-opening secret technique and the Shuriken shadow clone technique. That's right, although he had decided to work hard in these 2 directions, because there was no extra chakra available, he had basically been doing theoretical research in the past 2 days and had not carried out any practice at all. He could only confirm that it would not take long for his body to transform, and the chakra recovery speed would increase. so he could bear it. Otherwise, he would have reallocated the chakra long ago. However, this is also good. He should be able to save some chakra when he first did theoretical research and then practiced it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming no longer thought about it. He got up and left the woods and walked towards the cliff-top stronghold. Half an hour later, Qingming hurriedly finished his dinner and came to the meeting room. At this time, several subordinates had arrived in advance. Qingming didn't waste time and asked them to report today's work one by one. Although he left everything to his subordinates, in order to grasp the real-time situation of the base, he still listened to their task reports every day. In this way, when the enemy arrives, he can also know what to do. Soon, the report was completed. After confirming that nothing special happened, Qingming roughly arranged tomorrow's tasks and left in a hurry. Returning to his residence, Qingming was not in a hurry to rest. He still sat cross-legged as usual and began to perform the palm immortal technique and reflection heart technique to strengthen his body while promoting the evolution of the Sharingan. Time passed by 1 minute at a time. In a blink of an eye, it was late at night. The bright moonlight shone through the window, and Qingming opened his eyes. At this time, his eyes were full of fatigue. Putting down his hands, Qingming muttered, "Finally done." After that, he didn't think about it anymore, got up and came to the bed, then his shoulders relaxed and he fell on the bed. Just a few seconds later, a slight snoring sound came out of his mouth. Obviously, he had fallen asleep. At the same time, on the sea, which was still some distance away from the Eagle's Beak cliff, under the moonlight, several ships were moving slowly. There was no light on them, and they were very quiet, just like ghost ships. This was naturally not a ghost ship, but a warship of the Hidden Mist Village. Because the invasion team suffered heavy losses, the Hidden Mist Village took action again after a week of dormancy. Moreover, it seemed that they were not just making a small fuss. In fact, it was true. Not only the Eagle's Beak Cliff, but also several other places were the targets of the Hidden Mist Village tonight. Tonight, the Hidden Mist Village could be said to be out in full force. At this time, there were not many mist ninjas in the forward base located in the southeast of the Land of Waves, which was used as a bridgehead by the Hidden Mist Village. This time, they all followed the large army and came to the front line. The Hidden Mist Village planned to make a concerted effort to completely break through the defense line set by Konoha on the eastern border of the Land of Fire and completely push the front line into the territory of the Land of Fire. Of course, Kirigakure didn't plan to act recklessly. The places they chose to attack were basically the weak points of the various defense lines. After such a long battle, Kirigakure had already explored these basic intelligence. Originally, even if they knew this information, it wouldn't be of much use. Because they wouldn't dare to launch a full-scale attack until they figured out the distribution of troops in these strongholds and couldn't make targeted arrangements. However, not long ago, Kirigakure's envoy got the relevant intelligence, which gave Kirigakure an opportunity to launch an attack. Especially after confirming that there was no problem with the intelligence, Kirigakure directly launched a full-scale attack. And tonight is the time for them to launch the attack. Chapter 379, War breaks out again. Late in the night. The moon was high in the sky. On the side of Eagle's Beak Cliff facing the sea, 4 Konoha ninjas were chatting casually. Suddenly, one of them seemed to see something, pointed at the sea in the distance, and said anxiously, "Captain, look, what is that?" Hearing this, the captain of the 4-man team immediately looked in the direction he pointed. On the vast ocean, several black spots were approaching rapidly. He widened his eyes and carefully identified them. The next moment, his expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly said, "Send a signal quickly, it's an enemy attack." However, no one responded to him. A faint smell of blood entered his nose. Noticing something unusual, he instinctively looked back. At some point, 2 ninjas wearing black robes and masks appeared behind him. And his 3 teammates had already been killed. Mist hidden Anbu, looking at the 4 curved lines on the masks of the other 2, which looked like flowing water and clouds, Ikeda Tsuyoshi was surprised and said. While speaking, he was about to retreat. However, it was too late. The sound of a sharp blade piercing flesh was heard. A Kirigakure Anbu thrust the kunai in his hand into Ikeda Tsuyoshi's heart. A mouthful of blood spurted out of Ikeda Tsuyoshi's mouth. He endured the pain and wanted to warn. However, before he could make a sound, another kunai came and cut his throat directly, leaving him without saying a word. At this point, All 4 members of Akira Tsuyosi's team were killed, and they did not send out any signal until they died. After doing this, the 2 Kurigakure Anbu looked at each other and nodded to each other. Then, they ignored the bodies of the 4 people on the ground and ran straight to the deeper part of the Eagle's Beak Cliff, which was close to the stronghold. After walking about a few dozen meters, 2 figures suddenly jumped out from behind the huge rock next to them. They were also wearing black robes and masks, and they were also 2 Kurigakure Anbu. Seeing the 2, smelling the faint smell of blood on them, the Kurigakure Anbu who killed Akira Tsuyosi asked, "How is it?" His voice was hoarse, and through the mask, it seemed even more dull. Hearing this, the one who just appeared replied, "Everything went well, and the secret sentry has been dealt with by us. The sentries arranged by Konoha here are naturally not just the 4 people in the open. In fact, in addition to Akira Tsuyosi and others, there is also a small team in the dark, responsible for monitoring every move around. In the past, even if someone attacked, it would be enough for them to send out a warning signal with such a configuration of 2 teams, one in the open and one in the dark. However, in tonight's operation, Kurigakure was determined to win, and directly sent out the Anbu elites, whose strength was much greater than that of the 2 teams, and they had no time to react. In addition, Kurigakure was relatively quiet these days, and several Konoha ninjas unconsciously relaxed their vigilance. In this way, the superposition of these 2 factors led to the current result. After confirming that the open and secret sentries had been dealt with, the Kurigakure Anbu team did not go deeper, but hid their bodies and quietly waited for the arrival of the large force. Their mission was to ensure that Konoha would not find the traces of the large army at the first time. Now that the mission has been completed, they will naturally not do anything extra. It must be said that their approach was correct. Indeed, they easily dealt with Akira Tsuyosi and others, but this does not mean that they can move freely here. Because the closer they are to the stronghold, the tighter the defense of Konoha will be. If they dare to move forward, it will not take long for their whereabouts to be exposed. By then, Konoha will naturally notice it. Unfortunately, these people are the elite of the Kurigakure Anbu, with rich mission experience, and they did not do anything extra. As a result, Konoha knew nothing about the arrival of the Kurigakure. And this is destined to catch Konoha off guard. In the room, Qingming was sleeping soundly. At a certain moment, a sharp whistle suddenly sounded. The next moment, Qingming's eyes opened, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan opened instantly. He grabbed the scabbard next to him and jumped up from the bed. Boom! A violent explosion sounded in his ears. Qingming could tell that it was the sound of the detonating talisman exploding. Then, there were noisy shouts and fierce fighting. "Miss Hidden," Qingming murmured. The next moment, a figure appeared outside the house. Qingming let go of his senses and immediately discovered a large number of strange auras. He jumped a few times and came to the highest point of the stronghold, and then saw densely packed mist-hidden ninjas outside the stronghold. This number has exceeded any previous time, and there are about 500 or 600. Looking at the outer patrol team retreating step by step, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and quickly completed the seal with both hands, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. The next moment, his feet left the ground and flew towards the direction of the battlefield. Passing the 2 sides who were fighting each other in front, Qingming went straight to the back of the mist-hidden ninja troops. Looking at the mist-hidden ninjas who were still gathering, he formed seals with both hands and instantly performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. A fist-sized fireball came out of his mouth, and then it quickly grew larger, and finally turned into a huge fireball with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters, smashing into the Kurigakure team. Feeling the rolling heat waves coming from above his head, a Kurigakure Jonin looked up. The next moment, his expression was dull, and he couldn't help but murmured, "What is this?" Boom! The huge fireball fell to the ground and exploded, instantly turning the surrounding ground into a sea of fire, engulfing dozens of Kurigakure ninjas. The next moment, painful wails sounded, and those Kurigakure ninjas struggled in the flames, looking like evil spirits. This purgatory-like scene immediately shocked the surrounding Kurigakure ninjas. However, Qingming didn't care how they reacted. Now, there was only one thing he had to do, and that was to delay the attack of the Kurigakure village as much as possible. Only in this way could he buy enough time for the Konoha ninjas in the stronghold to organize a defense. Otherwise, the entire stronghold would be at risk of being lost. Qingming turned around and faced the crowded area below. He formed a seal again and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, dragon fire style. A flame gushed out of his mouth and turned into a fire dragon, rushing straight into the crowd. The next moment, the wailing sounded again. Qingming ignored it. With a flap of chakra wings behind him, he had arrived at another place. Fire style, dragon fire style. Another fire dragon rushed into the crowd. Qingming didn't care about the outcome of the battle. After performing the ninjutsu, he flew to other places and continued to perform ninjutsu to attack. In this way, he shot and moved to another place, never staying in one place. The Mist Ninja couldn't do anything to him for a while. He disturbed the rest of the Mist Ninja and affected the pace of advancement. Chapter 380 Initiative. A painful wail sounded below. Qingming ignored the Mist Ninja struggling in the flames. After performing the ninjutsu, he flew away from the spot. Soon, he found another place where the Mist Ninjas gathered. The next moment, he was about to make a seal to perform a ninjutsu to deal with them. However, at this moment, a water dragon suddenly soared into the sky and attacked him. Water dragon bullet technique. Qingming recognized this technique at a glance. Then, he looked in the direction where the water dragon flew. Then, he saw a familiar figure wearing a blue dress and long reddish-brown hair. Who else could it be if not Madarumi? Retracting his gaze, Qingming controlled the chakra wings behind him and flapped them gently, and the person left the spot. The water dragon flew past him without hurting him at all. After avoiding this attack, Qingming did not hesitate at all. He immediately raised his hands, completed the seal in an instant, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. This technique has been perfected by him, and its power is far beyond the past. Almost instantly, a wind blade more than 10 meters long was condensed by him, and then it cut straight to Darumi Mei below. A chill rose in her heart, and Darumi Mei didn't think about it and immediately dodged to the side. However, she dodged, but the Mist Ninjas nearby were in bad luck. One of them was directly cut in half by the wind blade and was about to die. The other two were also missing arms and legs, which was very miserable. Painful wails came from their mouths. Qingming ignored it, raised his hand again to form a seal, and was about to perform other ninjutsu. However, at this moment, a drizzle blew. This rain was nothing when it fell on his body, but as soon as it touched the wings behind him, it immediately began to eliminate the chakra in it. This made Qingming's body unstable. In just a moment, Qingming realized that there was something wrong with the rain. Then, his Sharingan swept downwards and soon found the caster. He was wearing a black robe and a mask, and it was a member of the Mist Hidden Anbu. Mist Village Anbu. Qingming's heart moved, and suddenly he found a corresponding ninjutsu from his past life memory, water style, Kiryu. This is a secret ninjutsu of the Mist Village, which can weaken all ninjutsu and chakra secrets except water style ninjutsu. Obviously, his wind style, wind wings, is among them. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming quickly changed his hand seals and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water dragon bullets technique. The next moment, a water dragon was condensed by him and rushed straight to the opponent. Originally, after being promoted to level 6, the water dragon condensed by him using the water style, water dragon bullet technique was very large, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Now, this water dragon is still falling from the sky, and the sense of oppression is even stronger. However, in the face of such power, the Mist Village Anbu did not retreat at all, and still maintained the effect of the ninjutsu of water style, Kiryu, and continued to weaken the chakra wings behind Qingming. Is he looking for death? Of course not. Just as his water dragon was about to land, a water dragon that was no less big than his water dragon soared into the sky and collided with the water dragon he had condensed. Bang! A dull sound came. The two water dragons collided and turned into water splashes all over the sky. Qingming's attack was blocked. Needless to say, the one who attacked was naturally Madarumi. She was seen gasping for breath, and it was obvious that she was also very extreme just now. Seeing this, Qingming immediately took out several shurikens from his ninja tool bag, and then threw them, shooting at Madarumi and the Kurigakure Anbu respectively. However, before these shurikens could get close to the two of them, dozens of kunai shot from the side and accurately blocked all the shurikens. Not only that, several kunai were shot at him. Qingming flapped his wings slightly and avoided the attack. The Sharingan turned, and Qingming looked in the direction where the kunai came from, and saw 3 Kurigakure Anbu and several Kurigakure Jonin rushing over. Obviously, after this period of entanglement, they have reacted. Now, even if Qingming wants to leave, it may not be easy. However, Qingming is not in a hurry. Anyway, his goal is to delay the attack of Kirigakure. Now that he can attract so many Kirigakure ninjas here, it is also a success. Looking back at the direction of the stronghold, Qingming retracted his gaze after confirming that the Kirigakure's advancement speed was no longer as rapid as at the beginning. At this time, another drizzle blew. Below, one of the three Kirigakure Anbu performed the ninjutsu of water style, cut drain. Feeling the chakra wings behind him disappearing at a faster speed, Qingming flew into the sky without any hesitation. Then, he completed the seal with both hands, took a deep breath, and exhaled violently, performing the ninjutsu wind style, big breakthrough. Indeed, wind style, cut rain can weaken all ninjutsu except water style ninjutsu. However, it also has a limit. When Qingming consumed 2,000 chakras at once and performed the wind style, great breakthrough, the drizzle could not do anything to his ninjutsu. Not only that, the strong wind he blew also blew away the drizzle. Seeing this scene, Terumi Mei immediately shouted, "Everyone, attack together!" In an instant, Kyune, Shuriken, detonating tags, ninjutsu, all kinds of attacks were thrown at Qingming. Qingming's wind style, wind wings was only level 2 after all. Although the flying speed was much faster, the flexibility was still somewhat insufficient. Even though Qingming had the Sharingan and could see the trajectory of these attacks clearly, he still couldn't avoid them. Helplessly, he could only continue to fly higher. However, after reaching high altitudes, the mist ninja could not hide him, but at the same time, he had no way to attack the other party. After all, the ninjutsu he knew had attack distance restrictions, and he could not cast spells at a long distance at all. For a while, the two sides were embarrassed here. A silent confrontation took place on the field. After a moment, it was Qingming who couldn't help it first. There was no other way. The hidden mist village had too many people dispatched this time. Madarumi saw that she couldn't do anything to him for a while, so she simply asked the middle and lower ninjas to participate in the attack in front, leaving only a few upper ninjas to confront him here. If this continued, the stronghold would be breached sooner or later. Therefore, he had to take the initiative. However, he did not fight to the death with Madarumi and others. Although with his strength, he didn't need to be afraid of these people, but since he had developed the flying ninjutsu wind style, wings of wind, he had to make good use of it. So, he directly passed a few people and flew towards the mist ninjas in front. Seeing this scene, Madarumi and others didn't look very good. After all, in the ninja world, after mastering the ability to fly, you have a great advantage in fighting. Just like Qingming now, whether to fight or not is just a matter of his thoughts. If the opponent has no targeted means, he can only follow behind him and eat dust. Chapter 381 Flaw. Damn it, looking at Qingming flying away in the sky, Terumi Mei's face was extremely ugly. After cursing inwardly, she immediately said, "Chase." After that, she took the lead and chased after him. Seeing this, the other mist ninjas looked at each other and followed. However, Qingming was flying in the sky without any obstacles, but they could only run on the ground and pay attention to various obstacles. They couldn't keep up with his speed at all. Therefore, when they arrived at the battlefield, they saw Qingming standing in the air, constantly performing various ninjutsu to attack the mist ninjas below. Although these mist ninjas also fought back, they could not pose much threat to Qingming, and were basically in a passive situation of being beaten. In this way, they suffered huge casualties in a short period of time. Before, when he shot and moved to another place, it was to delay the offensive rhythm of the mist ninjas, and he also had to avoid the counterattacks of Terumi Mei and other senior ninjas, so he did not cause much casualties to the mist ninjas. Now, without these concerns, his air advantage suddenly stood out. With the help of the Sharingan, he was in a commanding position and easily caused huge casualties to the Kirigakure team. Taking this opportunity, the nearby Konoha ninjas also began to huddle together for warmth and resist the attack of the Kirigakure ninjas. After seeing the situation here stabilized, Qingming glanced back at Terumi Mei and others who hurried over. Without any hesitation, he quickly completed the seal, took a deep breath, and performed the ninjutsu, wind-style breakthrough. 2,000 chakras were consumed in exchange for a tornado like a natural disaster. Even though Terumi Mei and others were strong in combat, they could only retreat temporarily in the face of this situation. Seeing this, Qingming did not entangle with them, and immediately flew to another battlefield and attacked the Kirigakure ninjas there. It's not his fault that he was so unreasonable, because there were too many Kirigakure ninjas attacking this time. In addition, they succeeded in the sneak attack and caught the stronghold off guard. If he didn't lend a hand, the situation would not be stable at all. At this time, if you still talk about soldiers against soldiers and generals against generals, it would be a joke. As for the other party breaking the unspoken rules and attacking those middle and lower ninjas, Qingming could only say, "Let's hurt each other." Anyway, there are more Kirigakure ninjas than Konoha ninjas on the battlefield. When all the middle and lower ninjas on both sides are dead, it will be useless for them to take down the stronghold. Fortunately, Madarumi and other Kirigakure Jonins did not lose their minds. They did not deliberately target those Konoha middle and lower ninjas, and they were still chasing him. However, because he could fly, he really had too many advantages. With his super mobility, he quickly shuttled through various battlefields while avoiding the pursuit of a group of Kirigakure Jonins, and continuously caused a lot of damage to the Kirigakure team. However, if you walk by the river often, you will get your shoes wet. As the number of his attacks increased, the shortcomings of the wind style, wind wings that were not very flexible were still exposed. So, when he attacked the Kirigakure ninjas below again, Madarumi took action. She completed the seal at a very fast speed. Then opened her mouth and spit out a mouthful of extremely corrosive liquid. Qingming had seen this move before. It was exactly the dissolving style, dissolving monsters technique of Madarumi. The opponent had two bloodline limits, boiling style and dissolving style. He had learned related ninjutsu when they first fought. Therefore, he recognized it at the first time. Without any hesitation, Qingming just finished performing the ninjutsu and controlled the chakra wings behind him to flap and move away from the pool of liquid. However, at this moment, several kunai shot at him. However, strangely, only two of them were shot at him, and the others were very far away. At first, Qingming thought they had some calculations, but when he saw the direction of these kunai shooting, his pupils shrank slightly. There was no other reason. These kunai were shot at places where he could dodge. Obviously, they had already figured out the limit of wind style, wind wings, and the cooperation just now was just an attempt. Qingming turned his head to avoid the incoming kunai, and thought to himself, sure enough, you can't underestimate anyone. Indeed, after mastering the flying ninjutsu, he had a great advantage. However, Madarumi and her people were not fools. They were experienced in fighting and had already found the flaws or shortcomings of the wind style, wind wings. If he was right, then they would be targeted in various ways. By then, his situation would definitely not be very good. Just as he was thinking about it, the two mist-hidden Anbu suddenly performed the ninjutsu at the same time, water style, cutting rain. The next moment, a large number of raindrops shot straight at him like fine needles. If you look closely, you can find that when these raindrops approached him, they all gathered towards his chakra wings. Obviously, this was a purposeful targeting. For this reason, he had to consume more chakra to maintain the effect of the ninjutsu. However, this was just the beginning. Just as he was about to fly away from the coverage of the opponent's ninjutsu, a large number of kunai and shuriken flew from below. It was not Madarumi and her people who attacked, but those middle and lower ninjas. Madarumi and her people organized them without anyone noticing and let them attack together. Looking at these kunai and shurikens, Qingming's Sharingan rotated rapidly, and these kunai and shurikens were reflected in his eyes in an instant. The next moment, his figure flashed, trying his best to avoid these attacks. At the same time, he also flew higher. However, how could Darumi Mei and others set up such a trap and let him get away easily? Almost as he flew high into the sky, two whips formed by water streams shot straight at him like poisonous snakes and wrapped around his ankles. A pulling force came, and Qingming looked back and saw that the other two Kirigakure Anbu were each pulling the other end of the whip. Water style, water flow whip. Qingming's mind moved, and he thought of this secret ninjutsu of the Kirigakure village. Seeing Qingming looking over, the two Kirigakure Anbu immediately looked away, and at the same time used both hands to try to pull Qingming down. However, how could Qingming surrender easily? He saw his right hand turned into a knife, a layer of chakra attached to it, and then swung it down, cutting off the water whip wrapped around his right foot. Then he swung again and cut off another whip. This was not any other ninjutsu, but a medical ninjutsu, chakra scalpel. Since he learned this technique, he has not used it in combat. Now he tried it and the effect was exceptionally good. Sure enough, having many skills is always good. The ancients were right. After regaining his freedom, Qingming sighed in his heart. Without the chakra scalpel, Although he could break free, it would never be as easy as it is now. And this also strengthened Qingming's idea of perfecting his skill library. Chapter 382. Seeing Qingming escape from the trap, Terumi Mei did not hesitate and immediately ordered, "Continue to attack." Hearing this, the surrounding mist-hidden ninjas immediately threw out the kunai and shuriken in their hands. The next moment, dense kunai and shuriken flew towards him. Qingming looked at these attacks, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan was pushed to the limit, constantly controlling the chakra wings behind him to flap to avoid. During this period, he naturally wanted to leave. However, after the experience last time, some of these middle and lower ninjas with good eyesight began to consciously block his route to the sky. This made him very uncomfortable. Soon, the second wave of attacks passed, but before he could make any moves, the third wave of attacks had already arrived. This time, there were not only ninja tool attacks, but also ninjutsu attacks. Looking at these attacks, Qingming's face was extremely ugly. As the saying goes, ants bite elephants to death. Perhaps 1 or 2 such attacks could not do anything to him, but if they happened too many times, it was inevitable that something would happen. In the past, he also had times when he fought against many people alone. But at that time, he basically used swordsmanship to fight the enemy. When fighting in close combat, the enemy did not dare to use ninjutsu at will. In addition, at that time, although he faced many enemies, there were only a few fighting him at the same time. However, now, he has the advantage of terrain, but he has also taken himself out. In this way, these mist ninjas can not only attack at will, but also there is no limit on the number of people, which is very troublesome. We can't let them go on like this. Thinking of this in his heart, Qingming dodged the attack while forming seals with his hands, opened his mouth, and performed ninjutsu, fire style, dragon fire technique. A flame gushed out of his mouth and turned into a fire dragon, burning directly towards the crowd. In an instant, several people were swallowed by the fire dragon. The next moment, painful wails came from the flames, which made people feel chilled. However, even so, these people were still not scared away. The mist ninjas below only paused for a moment and attacked again. Only Qingming's Sharingan was powerful enough to see these attacks clearly. If it were someone else, even if they had mastered the wind style, wind wings, they would probably have been torn to pieces by now. However, Qingming knew very well that a long defense would lead to loss. Therefore, even if the attack just now did not scare the opponent, he did not give up counterattacking. So, fireballs, fire dragons, fire rain, wind blades, and various ninjutsu were performed by him in turn, attacking the mist ninja below. In a short while, the area below turned into purgatory, and the pungent smell of blood and the smell of burnt corpses filled the whole place, which was nauseating. The mist ninja suffered huge casualties. During this period, Terumi and others also took action, but more often, they were just checking for loopholes and preventing Qingming from leaving. They did not express any opinion on the death of these mist ninjas. Obviously, they just wanted to take the lives of these mist ninjas and consume his state. However, their idea was destined to be impossible to achieve. It is true that in the previous battle, in order to find an opportunity to perform ninjutsu, he inevitably suffered some injuries, but these injuries were not fatal. Not to mention that he has mastered the LVA Palm Immortal technique, which can easily heal these injuries. Even his own self-healing ability is enough for him to last for a long time. Another thing is chakra. For a ninja, chakra is undoubtedly the most important. However, with his current chakra, even if he kills all the people below, it is impossible to consume it all. Based on these 2 points, it is not realistic for them to want to kill him with human lives. At the very least, it is not enough to rely on these people below. However, in order to kill as many mist ninjas as possible, Qingming still deliberately showed some fatigue, causing more injuries on his body. At the same time, the accuracy of the ninjutsu he performed also decreased a little. However, fake is fake after all. At first, Terumi Mei and others may not have noticed anything unusual, but when he dragged his injuries and continued to kill mist ninjas, they found the problem. Finally, after Qingming once again performed wind style, wind blade and killed 2 mist ninjas, Terumi Mei called a halt to the attack. "Did you find it?" Seeing that everyone below stopped, Qingming murmured. So, he stopped hiding, raised his hand to seal, and performed the Palm Immortal technique, injecting a ball of extremely rich yang escape chakra into his body, causing them to begin to repair the wounds on his body. Then, he sealed again and performed the ninjutsu, Fire escape, Phoenix immortal fire technique. The next moment, dense fireballs gushed out of his mouth, like a meteor shower, hitting the group of mist ninjas below. That's right, after the mist ninjas stopped, he took the initiative to attack. This is not because he is arrogant, but because he found that although the previous battle was a little dangerous, the overall risk was controllable. As long as he is careful not to be tricked by the senior ninjas, such as Terumi Mei, he can continue. In order to deal with him, Terumi Mei and others will inevitably mobilize more people. In this way, the pressure on Konoha ninjas in other places on the battlefield will inevitably be reduced. In this way, his purpose of attracting firepower has been achieved. In addition, this kind of dancing on the edge of a knife can also maximize the growth of his wind escape, wind wings. In just a short while, his proficiency increased by more than 100 points, and if he continued like this, it would not be long before his wind style, wind wings would be promoted to level 3. By then, his flexibility would definitely improve, and his safety would also increase. He would naturally not miss such a two birds at one opportunity. So, he made a move. Looking at the rain of fire, the mist ninjas below dodged one after another. However, Qingming had already practiced this technique to perfection, and had a strong control over the fireballs he spewed out. Especially after his spiritual attribute broke through the 20-point mark, this control became even stronger. So, it was seen that the fireballs seemed to have eyes, and one by one, they chased the nearest mist ninjas and attacked. Those Chunins were okay, their reaction speed was not slow, and they dodged it with a little effort. However, those Jinan were not so lucky. Several people were directly hit by the fireballs and fell to the ground wailing. Seeing this, Mei Terumi looked grim. And she used the water-style water dragon bullet technique on Qingming. Seeing this, Qingming's eyes lit up slightly, and he didn't dodge or evade, but used the ninjutsu, fire-style dragon fire technique. The next moment, the fire dragon and the water dragon met in the air, making a sizzling sound. A large amount of white mist was generated, and in the blink of an eye, it covered a radius of hundreds of meters. Huh? Not right. Looking at the white mist around her, Mei Terumi realized that something was wrong. With the size of the water dragon and the fire dragon just now, it was impossible to generate so much mist, and in such a short time. Mei Terumi's heart moved, and she sensed it for a while, and then she felt a lot of chakra in the mist, and said to herself, it is indeed the mist hidden technique. After confirming this, she was about to give a warning. However, at this moment, a flash of knife light appeared. The cold killing intent came, and Mei Terumi couldn't help but shudder. The next moment, she dodged to the side almost instinctively. Chapter 383. The overall situation is important. Swoosh! The long sword cut through the air, brushing against Mei Terumi's shoulder. The wind chakra wrapped on it directly tore her clothes, leaving a shallow scar on her shoulder. A light exclamation came from the white mist. The next moment, the long sword changed its downward trend and cut across Mei Terumi's neck. Terumi Ming didn't think about it, and rolled over to avoid the attack. It must be said that this move seems indecent, but it is very practical. Qingming's sword missed again. That's right, it was Qingming who launched the two attacks. He used the water vapor produced by the encounter of the fire dragon and the water dragon to cover up and secretly perform the water-style, mist-hidden technique, which directly blocked everyone's vision. Then, he directly released the wind-style, wind wings, aimed at Mei Terumi, and launched an attack. In the past period of time, he has been constantly using the air advantage to fly a kite, and now suddenly close combat really caught the opponent off guard. Unfortunately, the opponent's reaction was not slow. He attacked twice in a row, but she dodged both times. However, Qingming did not give up. A flash of green light appeared, and the instant sword technique was performed. In an instant, he came to the right side of Terumi Mei's body. The next moment, the long sword swung out and chopped at her neck again. Sensing the danger, Terumi Mei's face changed slightly, and she immediately raised the kunai in her hand and blocked it to the side of her body. Ding! A little spark appeared in the mist. The longsword and kunai collided with each other, making a crisp metal collision sound. A strong force came from the kunai, and Terumi Mei's feet were unstable and the whole person slid backwards. Qingming held the sword with both hands and pressed the opponent to slide for a distance. Then, he put away the sword and chopped again. Terumi Mei almost instinctively ducked and avoided the attack again. The long sword swept over the opponent's head, and a few strands of reddish-brown hair fell. Qingming put away the sword and chopped again, and Terumi Mei blocked again. For a while, the sound of ding dong dong rang out in the field. Because she lost the initiative, facing Qingming's attack, Terumi Mei could only block and dodge. However, Qingming's attack was like a violent storm, not only continuous, but also extremely fast. At first, Terumi Mei could keep up. But the more time passed, the harder it was for her to resist. After a while, she had several more scars on her body. Although not too serious, it was foreseeable that if she continued like this, she would die in Qingming's hands sooner or later. Realizing this, Terumi Mei naturally wanted to get rid of this predicament. However, Qingming did not give her any chance at all. At this moment, Qingming's figure was like a ghost, wandering around the opponent, and every move and every style was aimed at her vital points. If there was any flaw, he might catch it and take her life. Therefore, Terumi Mei did not dare to act rashly. Ding dong dong, the battle continues. Just when Terumi was about to give up, several subtle sounds of breaking through the air came. Kune, Qingming's heart moved, his steps paused slightly, and the long sword in his hand that was about to swing out suddenly changed direction. Then, he heard a few ding-ding sounds, and all the incoming Kune were blocked by him. Qingming looked in the direction where the Kune came from, and through the mist, he could vaguely see several figures. In addition, through the chakra diffused in the white mist, he also felt that the surrounding mist ninjas were gathering here. That's right, such a long time has passed, even with the white mist blocking them, they should have found this place, Qingming thought to himself. Then, he looked at Terumi, who had taken the opportunity to distance herself, shook his head secretly, and muttered, "What a pity." After that, he sheathed the sword, formed a seal again, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. The next moment, a pair of light blue chakra wings spread out behind him. Then, with such a light flap, he flew into the sky. As for Terumi, he had to give up for the time being. Indeed, he wanted to kill the other party just now, but the other party was quite strong. Although he was caught off guard by him and was passive everywhere, he still persisted. In this way, he did not need to risk being besieged and entangled with him. Compared with the other party, the overall situation is more important. He can take advantage of the time when the other party will make peace and rush to other battlefields to relieve the pressure of the Konoha ninjas there. This time, the strength of both sides is almost 1-3. In addition, the sneak attack of the hidden mist village was successful, which caught them off guard. If he did not help them, they would not be able to defend at all. Therefore, the overall situation should be given priority. Swish, Qingming's wings behind him flapped. In the blink of an eye, he flew out of the coverage of the water style, hidden mist technique. Then, he swept his eyes and locked onto a battlefield not far away. There, dozens of Konoha ninjas were facing the siege of more than 100 hidden mist ninjas. Very good, this is it. With a thought, Qingming controlled the chakra wings behind him to flap, and he quickly arrived above the battlefield. The next moment, he took out several shurikens, and used the 3 Magatama Sharingan to lock onto the figures of several mist ninjas. Swoosh, 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 the shurikens in his palm flew out and attacked these people. However, because he had attacked from the air before, these people were wary of the sky. Therefore, even with the cover of night, someone still discovered his trace. Be careful, immediately, someone warned. Hearing this, everyone looked up at the sky, and then they saw Qingming throwing shurikens. Then, the few people who were targeted by Qingming immediately dodged. However, despite this, half of them were hit. A few muffled groans came out of their mouths, causing their movements to stagnate. Seeing this, Qingming immediately raised his seal and almost instantly performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. He spit out a fist-sized fireball, which then rapidly grew larger and eventually turned into a huge fireball with a diameter of 5 or 6 meters, smashing into the people. Feeling the rolling heat waves from above their heads and looking at the scene that looked like a meteorite falling from the sky, the people were in a state of chaos and hurriedly wanted to dodge. Unfortunately, they had just been injured by the shuriken and reacted a bit slower. Even if they tried their best, they only avoided the frontal impact of the fireball. However, this was useless. Because at the moment the fireball landed, it boomed and exploded. At this time, let alone the people who were closer, even the people who ran away and advanced were also hit hard. Bang bang bang, the people on the periphery fell to the ground and spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. However, they didn't dare to stay for even a second, and without even bothering to wipe the blood from their mouths, they ran straight to the outer area. The next moment, a raging flame attacked, engulfing the place where they had just fallen. Chapter 384 Helpless. As they ran, they looked back, listening to the wailing coming from the sea of fire. Their faces were full of fear. At the same time, they were also glad that they were not the target. Otherwise, after these 2 rounds of attacks, they would probably be completely engulfed by the sea of fire like those people. However, they were too happy too early. After Qingming killed the people who were injured by the shuriken, he immediately aimed at them. The Sharingan turned slightly and locked onto 2 of them. Qingming quickly completed the seal with both hands and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Whoosh! Transparent wind blade flew by. On the periphery, the expressions of the 2 fleeing mist ninjas suddenly stagnated, and a bloodline appeared on their necks. The next moment, their heads flew up. And their bodies did not stop until they ran 5 or 6 meters away. Puff! 2 blood fountains rose, and a large amount of blood gushed out from their carotid arteries, instantly covering the surrounding ground. Seeing this scene, the 2 realized that they were dead. Suddenly, their faces became hideous. Unfortunately, this was useless, because they only had their heads left. Bang bang! The 2 heads fell to the ground and completely lost consciousness. Seeing this, Qingming retracted his gaze, turned his head to look at the others, reached out and took out a few shurikens again, ready to repeat the old trick. However, at this moment, a loud shout came from the crowd below. Everyone, fight back immediately! Hearing this, those missed hidden middle and lower ninjas immediately aimed at Qingming, either throwing kunai, throwing shurikens, or performing ninjutsu. In short, they all attacked Qingming. However, facing such an attack, Qingming was not moved at all. After putting away the shuriken in his palm, he began to form seals. In an instant, he completed the ninjutsu wind style, great breakthrough. He took a deep breath and exhaled violently. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. A gust of wind gushed out of his mouth, like a natural disaster, blowing towards the people below. Along the way, all the ninja tools shot at him, whether it was kunai, shuriken, or some other strange flying props, were blown back by him. In addition, those ninjutsu were also defeated by the strong wind. This is Qingming's way of dealing with attacks. 1 force defeats 10 skills. No matter how many changes you make, I will break it with 1 move. Below, those people in the mist-hidden village saw the incoming hurricane and fled in panic. There was no way. Those strong winds were mixed with a lot of ninja tools they threw out. Among them, there were many detonating tags. If you are caught in it, even if you don't die, you will lose a layer of skin. Boom boom boom! Explosions sounded one after another. The detonating tags were detonated one by one, and the flames produced were blown by the strong wind and spread everywhere. For a time, the battlefield below turned into a sea of fire. In this situation, even if Qingming intentionally avoided the places where the Konoha ninjas were, he still inevitably caused accidental injuries. Qingming was powerless to do anything about this, and could only pray that they were lucky enough. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming glanced at the fleeing mist ninjas, ended the performance of wind style, great breakthrough, and took out a few shurikens. The next moment, the shurikens flew out. This chaotic situation was just right for his Sharingan to play. Therefore, most of the people he targeted did not dodge this attack. However, after all, they were all ninjas, and the perception of danger was far superior to that of ordinary people. When the shurikens approached, they basically made corresponding evasive actions. Therefore, in the end, except for one guy who was unlucky and was hit directly in the vitals, the rest of them were only injured and did not die on the spot. And Qingming did not make a finishing blow. There was no other reason. The Konoha ninjas who were besieged before had already found them, so he didn't have to spend a lot of effort to make a finishing blow. What he had to do was to grasp the overall situation and weaken the strength of Kirigakure as much as possible. These minor matters could be left to others. With this thought, Qingming immediately turned his attention to the others. After finding the target, he formed a seal again and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Swoosh! A transparent wind blade flew out and hit 2 people, killing one of them and cutting off half of the other's arm. Painful wails came from the 2 people's mouths. Qingming ignored it and turned to look for the next target, continuing to perform ninjutsu attack. After that, in just over 10 seconds, he took advantage of the chaos in the field and performed several ninjutsu in succession, killing and injuring dozens of Kirigakure ninjas. However, how many people were killed was secondary. The key was that his actions caused great deterrence to the Kirigakure ninjas below, not only disrupting their formation, but also tying up a lot of their energy, so that they dared not act at will. In this way, it also gave the dozens of Konoha ninjas a chance to breathe. And that was enough. Qingming glanced at Terumi and others who were rushing over not far away, flapped his wings slightly, and flew to another battlefield. Seeing this scene, Terumi cursed inwardly. Damn it! Then, he had to chase after him again. This time, they miscalculated. Indeed, they knew that the person sitting here was Qingming, and they knew that he was very powerful, so they made special arrangements for this. However, they had calculated everything, but they did not expect that Qingming actually mastered a flying ninjutsu, which was completely missing in the previous intelligence. If it was any other ninjutsu, it would be fine. At most, they would suffer a few more casualties, but they could always delay or even capture Qingming. But the key to the problem is that this is a flying ninjutsu. In the entire ninja world, there are not many people who have mastered the ability to fly. Therefore, they did not consider the occurrence of this situation at all. Accordingly, they did not make more arrangements for this situation. In this way, they were naturally passive everywhere. Before, they could communicate through a senior ninja who mastered the secret art of the mind in the team, set traps, and then trap and kill Qingming. And now, after Qingming was fooled once, it is highly likely that he will not be fooled for the second time. Moreover, judging from the previous situation, even if Qingming was dragged to one place by them, they could not do anything to him with their current means. This is a bit uncomfortable. Now, they really have no way to deal with Qingming. Now, they can only follow behind him and eat dust. Fortunately, the village did not require them to capture this stronghold. The task they received this time was to drag Qingming here and prevent him from going to other fronts for support. As for the stronghold, it would be best if they could take it, but it would be fine if they couldn't. Fortunately, there was this order, otherwise they really didn't know what to do. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385 Dawn. In a flash, more than an hour passed. The moon, which was already setting in the west, had now come to the sea level. Logically speaking, this should be the darkest moment before dawn. However, because of the war, the Eagle's Beak Cliff was now full of flames, and no dark shadows could be seen at all. Qingming flew above the battlefield, his Sharingan spinning rapidly. After finding an opportunity, he flapped his wings and suddenly lowered his altitude. Next, various ninjutsu came out one after another, attacking the mist ninjas from a high position. The whole process lasted less than 30 seconds, and then he left, not giving the other side any chance to stay. The Eagle's Beak Cliff is surrounded by the sea on three sides, which is very unfavorable for defense. Therefore, even if the hidden mist village succeeded in a sneak attack tonight, it did not give up the advantage of the attacker. The entire battlefield was roughly divided into three parts. Konoha was almost surrounded on three sides. Originally, this was a very bad thing. But when Qingming had the flying ninjutsu, the disadvantage instantly turned into an advantage. Relying on the advantages brought by the flying ninjutsu, he quickly shuttled through various battlefields from above and continuously attacked the mist ninjas. During this period, although Terumi and others wanted to attack him, it was difficult for them to cross the battlefield directly like him. Therefore, they could not keep up with his speed. And this gave him enough time. In this way, the situation that was originally very unfavorable to Konoha became an excellent location to contain the mist ninja. However, what Qingming could see, Terumi and others, as the victims, could naturally see. So, they wanted to join forces. Unfortunately, Uchiha and others who received Qingming's order just pestered him, making it impossible for the mist ninja team to join. Not only that, they also deliberately divided the battlefield into more parts. In this way, they would certainly face greater danger. After all, the danger of 30 people facing a siege of 100 people is completely different from that of 3 people facing a siege of 10 people. Although the ratio is 1 to 3, when there are more people, even if they encounter danger, the chance of getting rescue will be higher than when there are fewer people. But even in the face of greater danger, Uchiha and others are still dividing the battlefield as much as possible. There is no other reason. This can give Qingming more room to play. If Qingming performs well, it means that their danger is reduced. It can be said that this is a mutually beneficial process. Of course, they will not be so extreme that they will really be divided into 3 teams. Generally speaking, they are basically about 10 people, facing the siege of 30 people from Kirigakure. In this way, Qingming can easily kill 4 or 5 people as long as he finds an opportunity. After a few times, their pressure will be greatly reduced. With spare energy, they can better deal with Kirigakure. However, Qingming's energy is limited after all, and it is impossible to take care of everyone. Therefore, in this process, Konoha's losses are also not small. Many ninjas have died in the hands of Kirigakure before waiting for his support. Especially when Terumi and others confirmed that they could not do anything to him and dispersed most of their forces to various battlefields, it was even more so. Even if he took this opportunity to kill 2 Kirigakure Jonins who were chasing him, it would be of no avail. There is no way. Kirigakure village has invested too much power this time. However, overall, Konoha can still accept it. Now, it depends on which side will be the first to fail. In a flash, nearly 2 hours had passed. The sky was turning pale. After nearly 4 hours of fighting, both Konoha and Kirigakure suffered heavy losses. At this time, looking down from the sky, you can see that around the Eagle Cliff stronghold, the 3 directions close to the sea are covered with corpses, some of which are Konoha ninjas and some are Kirigakure ninjas. As for the surrounding environment, it was destroyed to pieces. Even the forest where Qingming usually practiced was turned into scorched earth. Boom ding ding dang dang, the familiar sound of detonating tags exploding and fighting came. Qingming looked for the sound and saw that more than a dozen Konoha ninjas were besieged by Kirigakure ninjas who were twice their number and were fighting desperately. That's right, the battle is still not over at this time. Even though many people in Kirigakure village have died in this battle, even if they take down this stronghold, they will not be able to hold it later, but they still haven't given up. As for the reason, Qingming can probably guess 1 or 2. Just over an hour ago, Kurosawa Naruki sent a message asking about the situation here, hoping that if he had the spare energy, he could go to support another stronghold. However, one's own family knows one's own business. If he left, the Eagle Cliff stronghold would definitely not be able to be defended, so he decisively refused. However, he did know the overall situation from the other party's message. It turned out that not only their stronghold was attacked tonight, but also the other 2 lines of defense, as well as the northern line where he was located. Moreover, the intelligence from the hidden mist village this time was surprisingly accurate, which caught them off guard. Now, some strongholds have been breached, and some strongholds are still holding on. The commander-in-chief of the battlefield, Naruki amidst, is constantly mobilizing troops for support. Combining this information, Qingming can easily guess that the hidden mist village lost so many people and was still unwilling to retreat. It is likely that they wanted to drag him here. This is not because he is narcissistic, but because he has this weight now. In the past month, he has provided support a lot, and each time he has achieved good results. Therefore, it is normal for the hidden mist village to be wary of him. Based on this, it is easy to understand why they lost some people and dragged him here. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming flapped his wings behind him, and he drew a beautiful arc in the air. Then, he flew to the place where the dozen Konoha ninjas were besieged. It can be seen that compared with before, his flying speed and flexibility have been significantly improved. This is not an illusion, but a real situation. The reason for this is very simple, that is, after several hours of flying and fighting, his wind style, wind wings has been upgraded from LV2, 35 out of 500, to LV3, 310/1000. The improvement in proficiency naturally gave him a higher degree of control over wind style, wind wings. Compared with LV2, after being promoted to LV3, he performed wind style, wind wings again, and his maximum flight speed increased by 50% again. It directly increased from the original 20 meters per second to the current 30 meters per second, which is 108 kilometers per hour. Although this speed is far behind the speed of civil airliners in the previous life, it is almost the same as a car driving on the highway. The most important thing is that there is no need to worry about traffic jams and terrain restrictions. In addition, after upgrading to level 3, even if he flies at the fastest speed, the chakra consumed is not much higher than when he was at level 2. It can be seen that his control over the chakra wings behind him is becoming more and more sophisticated. This can also be seen from the fact that the chakra wings behind him have shrunk to about 1.2 meters. After all, it stands to reason that the smaller the wings, the less power they provide, and the same size and weight will fly slower. But the fact is that he flies faster. In this case, there is only one explanation, that is, his control over the chakra wings has improved. It is precisely because of this that his flying posture has become more flexible. Thanks to the book friend Hashayandi for the reward of 2,000 starting points. Chapter 386 Retreat. Be careful. Seeing Qingming flying over, one of the mist ninjas who were besieging more than a dozen Konoha ninjas suddenly shouted loudly. The next moment, they saw these people dispersed quickly. Seeing this scene, Qingming curled his lips and said secretly, "Bad luck, now, these mist ninjas have all gained experience in being beaten, and they know that he has a huge advantage in being high above, so when they see him coming, they immediately start to disperse. In this way, it will not be easy for him to attack many people at once. Even the fire style, Phoenix fire technique that can target multiple targets at the same time is not very useful as the enemies are getting further away from each other. It can only be said that the ninja's adaptability is really strong. It's just that they didn't prepare a plan to deal with aerial targets this time, otherwise Qingming might not dare to fly around so boldly. However, in this way, even if he doesn't take action, the dozen or so Konoha ninjas who are besieged can breathe a sigh of relief. Not only that, they can even take advantage of his arrival to counterattack. Just like now, those Konoha ninjas saw him flying straight at them, looked at each other, and immediately started chasing the scattered Kurigakure ninjas. And those Kurigakure ninjas didn't dare to use their full strength because they were afraid of his existence. Therefore, they were at a disadvantage for a while. Seeing this scene, Qingming was also happy to give them a chance, so he circled on the battlefield and continued to put pressure on these Kurigakure ninjas. Of course, he would not miss a good opportunity. In a short time, he used his means to kill one of them and injured three. However, that was the end. There was no other reason. The Kurigakure Jonins who were chasing him had already arrived. Qingming looked at their figures, flapped his chakra wings behind him, and flew to another battlefield. Those Kurigakure Jonins looked at the corpses on the ground and threw several shurikens at those Konoha ninjas as if to vent their anger. Then, they chased Qingming again. It's not that they don't want to stay and kill those Konoha ninjas, but if they do so, Qingming will stay in the next battlefield and launch a devastating attack on the Kurigakure ninjas there. Although they hurt each other and Qingming is only one person, because of the superiority and the geographical advantage, the damage they caused to these Konoha ninjas may not be as good as Qingming. In this way, it is not worth the loss. Therefore, they can only chase after him, even if they can't kill Qingming. They can't let him stay in one place for a long time. As for those Konoha ninjas, anyway, they have an advantage in the number of ninjas on their side, so they will leave it to them. It can only be said that this is a last resort. Time continues to pass. In a blink of an eye, another hour later, on the horizon and on the sea level, the morning sun rises, and the morning glow fills the sky. When the first ray of sunlight in the morning shines on the Eagle's Beak Cliff, the atmosphere of killing on the entire battlefield seems to have faded a little. Unknowingly, more than 5 hours have passed. At this time, the ninjas on both sides were exhausted, but they did not dare to retreat easily without the order from their superiors. Therefore, they still persisted. Thanks to the existence of the chakra absorption technique, Qingming's chakra was always at a high level. On the contrary, those mist-hidden ninjas, one by one, had a low breath, obviously lacking chakra. This made Qingming's delaying tactics easier. He even took this opportunity to forcibly kill a mist-hidden ninja and a special ninja, causing their high-end combat power to further lose. If Qingming did not want to provoke the mist-hidden ninja too much, he might have started a killing spree now. There is no need to doubt his strength. You know, in the past few hours, he has basically been traveling around by flying ninjutsu in order to take the overall situation into consideration. If he really lets go and exerts all his strength, with his current strength, even if he is besieged, it will not be a problem to kill a few people. But in that case, it will be disadvantageous to the overall situation and it will not be good for him, so he is too lazy to do it. However, if he delays for a while, the opponent's condition will be worse, and he might really take action. However, the opponent seems to be not destined to die. Another quarter of an hour later, just when Qingming was about to make a move, a loud eagle cry suddenly came from a distance. Qingming looked carefully and found that it was a herald eagle tamed by the Kurigakure village. Cry, another eagle cry came. Below. Madarumi and other senior ninjas listened carefully. After a moment, their expressions changed slightly. They looked at each other. Then, the Kurigakure senior ninja who was good at the secret technique of the mind cast a spell to contact all the Kurigakure ninjas and issued an order to retreat. That's right, retreat. From the cry of the herald eagle, they have received the order from their superiors, which requires them to return to the forward base as soon as possible. In the sky. Because of his high position, Qingming saw Kurigakure's plan at a glance, but did not obstruct it. There is no other reason, one is that he can't stop it. These mist ninjas were obviously well prepared. After receiving the order, they immediately split into dozens of groups and retreated to the sea from different directions. It was impossible for him to stop them all. Secondly, there were not many Konoha ninjas surviving in the stronghold, and their condition was extremely poor. Even if he stopped one or two of them, they did not have the strength to annihilate them. Finally, and most importantly, Madarumi and others were staring at him. Once he tried to stop them, there would probably be another big battle. Although he was not afraid of these people, he did not want to waste his energy for no reason. Therefore, after careful consideration, he chose to let it go. Seeing that he did not move, Madarumi and others also breathed a sigh of relief. If they were still full of confidence before the war, then after several hours of torture, they had lost their temper. At this time, it would be better not to take action if they could. As time passed, the two sides confronted each other tacitly, allowing their own ninjas and enemy ninjas to distance themselves and then leave. Soon, all the Kurigakure ninjas on the battlefield disappeared, and the Konoha ninjas gathered together. Qingming flapped the chakra wings behind him gently, and in a moment, he arrived at the edge of the Eagle's Beak cliff. Facing the rising sun, Qingming looked at the sea in the distance. There, several Kurigakure warships were sailing away quickly. Faintly, Qingming also saw a few familiar faces at the stern, all of whom were Kurigakure Jonins who had entangled with him last night. Inexplicably, he suddenly had a premonition that they would meet again soon. This was not entirely a whim. Kurigakure village deliberately launched such a war, and even fought to the end. It is impossible that there would be no results at all. Qingming can almost foresee that there are definitely strongholds on the border defense line that have been captured by Kurigakure, and there are even more than one. In this way, the two sides will inevitably fight over these strongholds. By then, he will most likely be recruited, and the Kurigakure Jonins on the opposite side will also most likely participate in this war, and the chances of the two sides meeting are not small. That's why Qingming said it wasn't all a premonition. However, this wasn't a good thing. Although with his current strength, especially with the ability to fly, such a battle was unlikely to threaten his life. However, if possible, he really didn't want to waste this time and energy. Unfortunately, he didn't have the confidence to ignore the rules yet. With a sigh, Qingming stopped thinking about it and flew towards the stronghold. Chapter 387 After the war. Soon, Qingming returned to the sky above the base. Wind wings was lifted. His feet landed on the ground again. Seeing this, Uchiha Qingming walked over and said, "Qingming, have all the mist ninjas left?" Yes, Qingming nodded and looked at the other party. At this time, his whole body was covered with blood, both his own and the enemy's. He walked with a limp, obviously suffering from serious injuries. Then, he looked at the others. Originally, there were more than 200 ninjas in this base, but after the battle last night, there were less than 70 people alive, and nearly two-thirds were killed. Moreover, the survivors were all injured. This casualty rate is not low. Of course, their losses were so great, and the losses of the mist ninjas were also not small. Although the opponent had an absolute advantage in numbers, because of his existence, the opponent also suffered heavy losses in this battle. According to rough statistics, the number of ninjas who died directly in the mist-hidden village this time was about 250. This number has exceeded 40% of the total number of the opponent. In terms of the ratio, the casualty ratio of both sides was about 1.5. Although this ratio is not high, don't forget that this was achieved by the Konoha ninjas at an absolute disadvantage of 1.3 in terms of manpower. In other words, he relied on his flying ability to pin down many of the other side's high-end combat forces, and occasionally attack those Kurigakure middle-level ninjas. Otherwise, let alone 1.5, It would be considered good if they were not beaten to 1.5. It is precisely because of this that when he swept his eyes over, except for those seriously injured and unconscious ninjas, anyone who was still conscious would unconsciously reveal a little gratitude when they met his gaze. Facing the gazes of these people, Qingming sighed softly. Then, he turned to Uchiha on the side and said, "Take your people to check the situation of everyone, and then mark their injuries according to the severity, and then I will treat them." Hearing this, Uchiha's face lit up, and he hurried down to prepare. Looking at the back of the other party, Qingming was silent for a while. It is true that treating so many people, even if it is just to stabilize the injuries, will consume a lot of chakra. Needless to say, it will definitely hinder his progress. However, some things have to be done. Putting aside the fact that he knows medical ninjutsu, almost everyone in the base knows that if he does not take action at this time, it is inevitable that it is not justifiable. Secondly, he does not want to watch these people die because they did not receive timely treatment, which will make him feel uneasy. In this case, it is better to obey his own heart and treat them. This will certainly hinder his progress, but it is only a day or two. He can still wait. Even if his body is about to transform in these few days, he can still suppress it. All kinds of thoughts flashed in his mind. Qingming shook his head, no longer thought about it, and turned to a seriously injured and unconscious Konoha ninja. After carefully checking the other party's injuries and confirming that it was just excessive blood loss, he untied the bandage on the other party. Then, after cleaning the wound, he began to perform the palm immortal technique to treat the injuries on his body. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming finished the treatment. At this time, the wounds on the Konoha ninja's body had healed, and his breath had stabilized. At this moment, his eyes moved slightly. The next moment, he opened his eyes. The first time he saw Qingming, he understood what had happened, and then said weakly, "Captain." "Yeah." Qingming nodded, responded simply, and said, "Don't talk, have a good rest." After that, he looked at the two Konoha ninjas who were waiting on the side, waved his hand and said, "Okay, carry him down." "Yes, Captain," the two immediately responded. Qingming ignored the two and carefully carried the Konoha ninja on the ground onto the stretcher. After giving the order, he stood up and walked towards another seriously injured Konoha ninja. Unlike the previous person, this person's face was black, as if he had been poisoned by some kind of toxin, and his breath was extremely weak. Qingming quickly stepped forward and performed the fine disease extraction technique to carefully sense the condition of the other person's body. Thanks to the practice over the past month, his fine injury extraction technique has reached level 5. Therefore, it is easy to sense the place where the toxins gather in the opponent's body. After that, he directly used the chakra scalpel to cut the skin and muscles of the opponent's corresponding place, revealing the organs covered with the black lines inside. These black lines are the result of the spread of toxins. Qingming did not hesitate at all and used the fine injury extraction technique again, and began to carefully extract these toxins. It took more than half an hour for him to complete this step. However, the root cause has been removed, and the next treatment is relatively simple. The level 8 palm fairy technique is enough to deal with everything. After another 5 minutes, he completed the treatment. Qingming wiped the sweat from his forehead and exhaled lightly. After having him carried away as usual, Qingming looked at the others. At this time, there were nearly 10 seriously injured ninjas. With his current efficiency, by the time it was the turn of the next few people, they might have died. With this thought, Qingming sighed and said, "Forget it, I'll do my best. Since I've decided to save people, I'll save them to the end." After that, he raised his hands, crossed them to form the character seal, and performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. Bang! With a cloud of chakra smoke dispersing, 9 Qingming's shadow clones appeared in the field. Including his original body, there were 10 people. Qingming walked out of the team and looked at the 9 shadow clones. Without any extra nonsense, he said directly, "Okay, let's start." Hearing this, the 9 shadow clones all used the flash body technique and disappeared from the spot. Because the seriously injured were in a critical situation, Uchiha and others did not dare to move at will, but just marked them. Now, Qingming and the 9 shadow clones rushed to their location and prepared to treat them at the same time. Although this consumes more chakra, it doesn't matter. In a flash, time came to noon. After several hours of treatment, all the injured Konoha ninjas, including the dozen seriously injured ones, received effective treatment. For this, Qingming consumed almost 150,000 chakra points. It was only because of his amazing chakra recovery speed that he recovered almost 100,000 chakra points in one morning. Otherwise, he might not be able to hold on. However, chakra is easy to recover, but mental fatigue is not so easy to recover. Originally, he slept very late last night, but was woken up in the middle of the night. After that, there was a big battle. After the battle, he kept casting spells to save people, and was busy for a whole morning, which really made him a little tired. Even though his spiritual attribute has exceeded 20 points now, he still can't hold on. Therefore, after completing the treatment, he casually explained a few words and returned to his residence to rest. Uchiha Qingming and others were also very sensible. They immediately took care of all the trivial matters, leaving Qingming with no worries at all. Chapter 388 Commands and Messages. The sun sets and the moon rises. In the blink of an eye, night has fallen. Several hours have passed, and Qingming is still sleeping soundly. At a certain moment, there is a knock on the door. Dong dong dong. The next moment, Qingming suddenly opened his eyes. In just a moment, his eyes changed from confusion to clarity. Then, his perception spread out, and after confirming the identity of the visitor, he relaxed a little. However, he did not respond in a hurry, but sat up, spread his arms, and stretched hard. Cackle. A sound of bones rubbing against each other sounded. Qingming just felt very comfortable. I haven't slept so comfortably for a long time, Qingming murmured, retracted his arms, and then said, "Come in." Creak. The door was pushed open. Uchiha Qingming walked in. Seeing the other party, Qingming asked directly, "What's the matter?" Hearing Qingming's question, Uchiha Qingming did not waste any words and replied directly, "This afternoon, Captain Kurosawa sent a message asking you to rush to the Blackstone Stronghold before 8 o'clock tomorrow morning." Blackstone Stronghold? Qingming frowned slightly when he heard this, and opened his mouth to confirm. Is it the Blackstone Stronghold that belongs to the Central Defense Line, close to the southernmost end of the Northern Defense Line? Yes, that's it, Uchiha Qingming replied affirmatively. If I remember correctly, that should be a large stronghold with extremely tight defense. It should not have been lost, right? At this point, Qingming suddenly seemed to remember something and interrupted to ask, "By the way, how many strongholds did we lose in the battle last night?" 4, Uchiha Qingming replied. According to the news from Captain Kurosawa, the Hidden Mist village broke through a total of 4 of our strongholds last night, one of which was near the Blackstone Stronghold. Oh, Qingming understood immediately after hearing this. In other words, the command center is preparing to retake this stronghold. That should be the case, Uchiha Qingming replied. Not just you. I heard that other strongholds also had senior ninjas transferred and all were concentrated in the Blackstone Stronghold. Is that so? Qingming groaned for a moment, and spoke again. If I leave, what about this stronghold? The Hidden Mist village may not really give up this place. Does Captain Kurosawa have any arrangements? Yes, Uchiha Qingming nodded, confirmed his guess, and said, "Tonight, a team of 100 people will come to support us." At this point, he paused, and then continued. In addition, according to Captain Kurosawa, it seems that the village has received news that the Hidden Mist village will no longer attack other strongholds. They seem to be preparing to use those 4 strongholds as a springboard to expand the occupied area. Qingming heard this, thought about it, and felt that there was some truth. Since the 4 strongholds have been taken, there is really no need for the Hidden Mist village to attack everywhere. This can certainly tie up Konoha's energy. But at the same time, it will also disperse their forces. After all, this is Konoha's home ground. If they suddenly concentrate their forces and take back the 4 strongholds, wouldn't the Hidden Mist village be busy in vain? Therefore, it is still the key to seize the benefits at hand first. In this case, it is naturally not suitable to continue to attack everywhere. In this case, there is really no need to worry too much about the Eagle's Beak Cliff stronghold. Because even if the Hidden Mist village still won't give up and wants to take action here, it is highly likely that they will not send too many people. A brigade of 100 people for support is enough. With this thought, Qingming was completely relieved. Then, the room fell into silence. After a moment, Qingming spoke again. Is there anything else? Uchiha Qingming thought for a moment, shook his head and said, "No more." Well, go ahead. Qingming started to drive people away. Hearing this, Uchiha Qingming responded and walked out the door. However, just as he reached the door, he suddenly stopped and turned back and said, "Qingming, be careful." Huh? Qingming raised his eyebrows when he heard this, and then smiled and said, "Don't worry, Don't you know my ability? Nothing will happen. Well, I believe you. Uchiha Qingming nodded seriously, and then said no more, turned around and left the room, closing the door by the way. Feeling his breath going away, Qingming shook his head and laughed. You are still worried about my safety. Am I a person who likes to show off? At this point, Qingming's movement suddenly paused. There was no other reason. He suddenly thought of what he did last night, and his subsequent actions of treating the wounded until he was exhausted. It seems, there is some interest, Qingming thought. However, he shook his head immediately afterwards. His family knows his own business. The reason why he was so reckless last night was that the hidden mist village really had no good way to deal with his flying ninjutsu, and secondly, he had the Skyguard as his trump card. With confidence in his heart, he could naturally be bolder. Without these two, he would not be so risky. As for the subsequent treatment of the wounded, it was just what he could do within his ability, and it was nothing at all. So, Uchiha Qingming's worry was completely unnecessary. In addition, he did not gain nothing from performing medical ninjutsu so frequently this morning to treat the wounded. At least, his proficiency in several medical ninjutsu has been greatly improved. Before, he said that this would slow down his progress, but it would only slow down his body's transformation and the speed of the Sharingan's evolution. The other effects were not very big. After all, most of those chakras were eventually transformed into proficiency and remained on his body. It's just that the proficiency of its transformation is not quite in line with his plan. Qingming opened the panel and took a glance. It can be seen that his palm immortal technique, chakra scalpel, and skin extraction technique have all increased by several hundred points of proficiency. Especially the palm immortal technique, because of the bonus of practice, the proficiency has directly increased by nearly 1,000 points, which is almost the sum of the past 4 days. Unfortunately, all these proficiency were used by him to save people. Otherwise, his body should have reached a critical point of transformation now. Shaking his head, Qingming stopped thinking about it and began to perform the reflection heart technique to stimulate the brain to produce special chakra and promote the evolution of the Sharingan. After an afternoon of sleep, the chakra in his body has long been restored to full state. The Blackstone stronghold is only less than 60 kilometers away from here. At his speed, if he performs the wind style, wind wings, he can arrive in less than 40 minutes. There is no need to rush. It just so happens that he has slept enough, and he can take advantage of this time to make up for the progress of training that he has fallen behind today. In this way, time passed by minute. The night gradually deepened, and Qingming was still practicing the art of reflecting the heart over and over again, as if he wanted to make up for all the time lost during the day. Chapter 389 Meeting. The next day, early in the morning, when the first ray of sunlight shone into the house through the cracks in the window, Qingming opened his eyes. With a thought, he opened the proficiency panel, looked at the proficiency of the reflection heart technique and palm fairy technique on it, and nodded with satisfaction. After a night of hard work, he finally made up for the progress of the reflection heart technique yesterday. Not only that, he also performed the palm fairy technique to strengthen his body. Although he did not make up for all the progress, it finally brought him one step closer to transformation. As for the consumed chakra, if he only practiced these two skills, the chakra recovered naturally by the body and the chakra recovered by running the chakra refining technique would be enough. Therefore, until now, the chakra in his body is still close to the full value. Not bad, Qingming murmured, and closed the proficiency panel. Then, he looked at the window and muttered, "It's almost time, I should set off too." Kurosawa Chengshu gave him the order to rush to the Blackstone base before 8 o'clock this morning. Now, it was just after 7 o'clock. If he used the wind style, wind wings, he could arrive in less than 40 minutes. Qingming never liked waiting for people. Similarly, he would not let people wait. So, let's not be so extreme, let's go now. With this thought, Qingming packed up his equipment, confirmed that he had brought everything he needed, and left the room. He did not go to say hello to Uchiha Qingming. Last night, after the 100-man brigade sent by Kurosawa Chengshu to support arrived, the other party came again. He had said what he should say at that time. Therefore, there was no need to waste words now. When he came to the open area, Qingming looked at the sky. Without any hesitation, he immediately raised his hand to form a seal and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. The next moment, a pair of light blue chakra wings appeared behind him. Qingming moved his mind and controlled them to flap. Then, he flew into the sky. About 100 meters above the ground. Qingming identified the direction and flew straight over. Someone in the base saw Qingming and quickly warned his companions, "Look, there's someone in the sky." However, the Konoha ninja who was traveling with him heard this, looked up, and smiled and said, "Hey ya, don't be nervous, that's our captain. You just arrived and don't know, our captain has mastered a flying ninjutsu." "Captain?" Ghost Sword Qingming, Inuzuka Heiya said in surprise. "Yes, I tell you, the night before last." Then, the Konoha ninja vividly recounted what Qingming did that night. How did he get the name? That's how he got the name. In the sky, Qingming vaguely saw two people, but after glancing at them, he ignored them. He flapped his wings and instantly reached the maximum speed, flying towards the direction of the black stone base at a speed of 30 meters per second. More than half an hour later, Qingming arrived at the black stone base without any trouble. The Konoha ninja in charge of patrolling saw him falling from the sky and was obviously stunned. Obviously, the fact that he mastered the flying ninjutsu in just one day was not enough to spread. Now it is estimated that only Kurosawa Shigeki and other Konoha high-level officials know about it. Of course, if possible, he actually wants to hide this ability. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. From the beginning, his ability was exposed, and the subsequent surprise attack on the hidden mist village forced him to use this technique. Therefore, there is no need to hide it. It just so happens that he might be able to use this technique to get a good job. Needless to say, the scale and intensity of the battle in the Konoha organization's counterattack will definitely not be small, and in such a battlefield, even if he is strong, he must be careful. If he can take on some tasks that are not so dangerous, the probability of accidents can be minimized. However, this requires contacting the high-level members of the clan. Otherwise, it may be difficult to achieve. In addition, the things entrusted to the clan should have a result. With this thought, Qingming found Uchiha Yashiro after completing the registration. That's right, the other party also came here to support. Moreover, it is not in an ordinary capacity. For such an important battle, each family in Konoha village would appoint a clan member to coordinate. This was done on the one hand to protect the interests of the family, so as to prevent the death of clan members inexplicably, and on the other hand to better manage the ninjas of the family, so as to cooperate with the actions of the village. The Uchiha clan was no exception. And this time, the person in charge of the Uchiha clan was Uchiha Yashiro, which was clearly stated in the news received yesterday. Therefore, Qingming did not need to ask around and easily found the other party, dong 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 outside a door. Qingming tapped his fingers lightly. "Come in." The voice of Uchiha Yashiro came from inside the house. Although he had not met the other party many times, Qingming could still recognize the other party's voice. Then, he pushed open the door and walked in. However, as soon as he walked in, he saw an unexpected figure. Shisu, that's right, this person was none other than Uchiha Shisu. Seeing him come in, Uchiha Shisu also said, "Qingming, you are here?" "Yeah." Hearing this, Qingming nodded, and then said, "You have been recruited as well?" "Yeah." Uchiha Shisu also nodded in response. Because Uchiha Yasadamo was in front, the two did not exchange too many pleasantries. Qingming looked at the figure behind the table and said, "Uncle?" "Yeah." Uchiha Yasadamo nodded, looked him up and down, then smiled and said, "Qingming, not bad, you are very good." After that, he turned to look at Uchiha Shisu and said, "It's just right, you two are here. I will tell you all the things that should be paid attention to at once, and it will save trouble." Hearing this, Qingming and Uchiha Shisu said at the same time, "Please go on." "Well, it's like this." After that, Uchiha Yasuda didn't waste any words and directly began to talk about some things that needed attention during the mission. He didn't give a long speech. It only took a few minutes to finish talking about these routine precautions. Only at this time did his expression become serious. He looked at Qingming and Uchiha Shisu, and finally said, "I believe you should also know the danger of this mission." "Yeah." Qingming and Uchiha Shisu nodded at the same time. The Hidden Mist Village took so much effort to capture 4 strongholds, and it was naturally impossible to give them back easily, so they would definitely fight to the death. Therefore, the danger of this mission is self-evident. Qingming can figure it out. And Uchiha Shisu can naturally figure it out, so the two of them nodded seriously. Seeing them like this, Uchiha Yasuda was very pleased. After a brief silence, he said, "The two of you are the future of the family, and the foundation for the family to go further. You must not lose here. So, for this counterattack, I will try my best to arrange some relatively safe tasks for you, and you must save your lives." Hearing this, Uchiha Shisu frowned slightly, as if he had some opinions about Uchiha Yoshiro's words, but he was a smart man after all, and did not object to him in person. And Qingming, naturally, was even less likely to object. Or rather, this just suited his wishes. Thanks to book friend 20240912182356389 feet for the reward of 100 starting coins. Chapter 390. Seeing that Qingming and Uchiha Shisu had no objection, Uchiha Yoshiro breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, he was really afraid that these two people were young and ignorant, and they were too hot-blooded to charge at the front line. Especially Qingming. After learning about what he did the night before, Uchiha Yoshiro had been worried. Now that Qingming did not express any objection, he was completely relieved. In other words, Qingming did not have the ability to read minds, otherwise he would definitely be laughed at by the other party's worry. Charge at the front? What a joke. This time, he came here just to get by, and he could not charge at the front line no matter what. Needless to say, the Hidden Mist village must have known that he knew flying ninjutsu. In this case, it would be a fool's dream to fight thousands of troops alone like that night. Therefore, he had better keep a low profile. Just when Qingming was thinking about it, Uchiha Yoshiro said some other things that needed attention, which made Uchiha Shisu leave. Qingming, on the other hand, was left behind. Before Qingming asked what he wanted to do, Uchiha Yoshiro took out a book and 3 scrolls from the drawer. This is, Qingming looked at the books and scrolls in the other's hand, and his heart moved. He hesitated and said, "What do I want?" "Yes," Uchiha Yoshiro nodded affirmatively, handed the 4 things to Qingming, and said at the same time, "The things you asked the clan to find are all here. Elder Huaxun asked me to bring them to you on the way." Qingming heard that and hurriedly took the books and scrolls. He first opened the only book and glanced at it. He saw that it recorded some of the processes and experiences of Uchiha ninjas in developing Earth Attribute Chakra. There is no doubt that this can save him a lot of time. Then, he opened 3 more scrolls. He saw that each of them recorded a ninjutsu, namely Earth Style, Hardening Technique, Earth Style, Earth Rising Spear and Earth Style, Earth Flowing Wall. Among them, Earth Style, Earth Rising Spear and Earth Style, Earth Flowing Wall are not mentioned. The former is the iconic ninjutsu of the Hidden Rock Village, which is widely spread, with a C-level difficulty to learn and focuses on attack, while the latter is a very practical B-level defensive ninjutsu. It can be said that it meets his needs very well. As for the Earth-style hardening technique, although its name is ordinary, it is actually not simple. This is also a ninjutsu with a learning difficulty of B-level. Its effect is similar to Kikuzu's Earth-style Earth Spear, both of which can directly enhance their own defense. The only difference is that Earth-style Earth Spear will also give the caster additional powerful destructive power, while Earth-style hardening technique will only enhance the caster's defense. Moreover, it is best not to move when casting the technique. In this way, the best effect can be achieved. At this time, under the same conditions, its defense is not inferior to Earth-style Earth Spear at all, and even slightly surpasses it. There is no doubt that this technique can greatly make up for his shortcomings in defense and is a rare ninjutsu. It's better to lean on a big tree to enjoy the shade. Looking at the books and scrolls in his hands, Qingming couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Only a family like Uchiha with a long heritage and profound background could find something that completely meets his requirements in such a short time. If it were him, he didn't know how much time and energy he would waste to collect all these things. Shaking his head, he didn't think about it anymore. He put away the scrolls and books, and said to Uchiha Yoshiro solemnly, "Thank you, uncle, and Elder Huaxun." "Yes," Uchiha Yoshiro nodded, gave a few instructions, and then let him leave. Walking out of the room, Qingming was about to leave, and then he saw Uchiha Shisu. At this time, the other party was standing not far away, leaning against the wall, obviously waiting for him. Qingming turned his head and roughly guessed what the other party wanted to talk to him about. It was nothing more than the things that Uchiha Yoshiro had just explained, which did not meet his wishes, and he wanted to discuss it with him. In the past 3 months, the other party has been discussing family and village, war and future, and other related topics with him. Although he himself is not very interested in these, because of the information explosion in his previous life, his knowledge is far superior to that of the other party. In this way, Coupled with his deep understanding of the ninja world, a few words can often make the other party think deeply. Therefore, in the eyes of the other party, he is an Uchiha ninja with independent thinking. It is also because of this that it is normal for the other party to come to him at this time. However, how can he have the heart to talk about these things with the other party now? The things he needs are already in hand, and he can't wait to practice now, and he has no heart to think about other things. What's more, the arrangement of the Uchiha 8th generation is very much in line with his mind, and he doesn't want to cause trouble. However, the face that should be given should still be given. After all, the other party will definitely be an important member of the ninja world in the future, and he may be able to help him at any time, so he still can't ignore it. With this thought, Qingming paused slightly, and then walked straight towards the other party. "Shisu, what's the matter? Do you want to talk to me?" Qingming spoke before he got close. Yet, Uchiha Shisu nodded, stood up straight, and said, "There are some things I want to tell you." "Okay," Qingming simply responded and said, "Let's talk while we walk." "Okay," Uchiha Shisu replied, and then followed him to the direction of the residence. On the way, Uchiha Shisu began to explain his point of view. As expected, the other party was indeed a little dissatisfied with the arrangement of Uchiha Yashiro. Well, it can't be said that he was dissatisfied, but he thought that at this time, he should not think about the family and himself, and should focus on the interests of the village, etc. Qingming neither agreed nor opposed to the other party's statement, but just responded perfunctorily. When they arrived near the residence arranged for them by the base, Qingming found an opportunity to say goodbye to the other party. Standing there, watching Qingming's back as he left, Uchiha Shisu frowned slightly. He felt that Qingming today did not seem to agree with his ideas. In fact, he was very satisfied with the arrangement of the 8th generation uncle. Is it an illusion? Uchiha Shisu thought. But soon, he shook his head and denied this idea. He didn't believe Qingming was such a person from the bottom of his heart. Apart from anything else, the battle the night before was enough to show Qingming's love for the village. "I must have thought wrongly," Uchiha Shisu said in self-hypnosis. After that, he stood there for a while before leaving. At the same time, Qingming felt the gaze behind him disappear and he breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, Qingming felt a little pressure in his heart to communicate with a mature teenager like Uchiha Shisu. Fortunately, everything is over. Next, it's time for him to practice. Compared with fighting wits and courage with others, he still prefers to practice. Chapter 391 Mission. In a flash, time came to the afternoon. In the room, Qingming opened his eyes, looked at his empty palm, then picked up the book beside him again and read it carefully. After a while, he sighed and said, the fourth attribute is really not that easy to develop. In the ninja world, except for those ninjas who inherited some blood limit, most ninjas have only one chakra attribute by nature. Even before they are promoted to Jonin, they only have one. Only after they reach Jonin, they will start to develop the second chakra attribute to make up for their own shortcomings. Of course, some geniuses may be earlier, but they just start preparing during the Chunin period. However, among these people, more than 90% only have two chakra attributes in the end. The reason for this is not that they are unwilling to continue to develop. There is no doubt that mastering multiple chakra attributes will improve combat power. If it is possible, no one will give up, but they just can't do it. If the difficulty of developing the innate chakra attribute is 1, then the difficulty of developing the second attribute is 5. At this time, any ninja with a little talent can do it. However, when it comes to the third attribute, the difficulty will reach 10. Although this difficulty is only doubled compared to developing the second chakra attribute, it is 10 times that of developing the innate chakra attribute. At this step, ninjas who do not have enough talent will basically be rejected. Nowadays, more than half of the ninja world's Jonins are at this step. As for developing the fourth chakra attribute, Qingming currently feels that the difficulty is at least 20. In this case, if you are not a genius, there is no need to waste time. Because even if they develop it reluctantly, it may not have a good effect. With this time, it is better to hone the existing abilities. In this way, the improvement may be greater. However, Qingming has no intention of giving up. Not to mention the existence of the proficiency panel, after developing the earth attribute chakra, he does not have to worry about the subsequent mastery problem. Just because of its restraining effect on water attribute chakra, he cannot give up. This is not to say that he is going to deal with a ninja who is proficient in water escape, but the 5 chakra attributes, fire, wind, thunder, earth, and water. There is a clear relationship between them, which can form a perfect retreat. If one of them is missing, it is equivalent to a flaw. It is true that when fighting, he can rely on the magnificent chakra volume to win people over by force. But if he faces a ninja with a huge amount of chakra and who happens to have mastered the ninjutsu that restrains him, then this shortcoming will be infinitely magnified. The barrel theory in the previous life illustrates this point very well. How much water a barrel can hold does not depend on the longest plank, but on the shortest one. And the reason why he is so diligent in developing new chakra attributes is to lengthen the shortest plank. In this way, there will be no obvious flaws. Therefore, no matter how difficult this process is, you can't give up. With this thought, Qingming gathered his mind, compared the contents of the book again, and continued to develop the earth attribute chakra, the sunsets and the moonrises. In a blink of an eye, time has come to night. In the past day, neither Kirigakure nor Konoha made any rash moves. During this period, not to mention the outbreak of a major war, even small-scale battles did not occur. Both sides seemed to have not seen each other and remained silent throughout the whole process. However, Qingming knew that this was just a calm before the storm. Just like Konoha, they have been mobilizing troops for a whole day. Although the mobility of ninjas far exceeds that of ordinary armies, such large-scale troop mobilization still requires a certain amount of time. That is why there is no action. Similarly, Kirigakure is also actively preparing. Therefore, he only has one day to practice. However, that is the end. Not long ago, his mission came down. Uchiha Qingming really got him a good mission. Thinking of this in his heart, Qingming packed up his equipment, confirmed that everything was brought, and then walked out of the room. After that, without staying for long, he raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind wings. Bang! A pair of light blue chakra wings spread out. Qingming thought and controlled the wings to flap slightly. The next moment, he came to the sky. After that, he circled and flew straight to the direction of Fiayu Town. The so-called Fiayu Town is actually a small town on the eastern border of the Fire Country, next to the sea. Because of its special geographical environment, it is often attacked by storms, but after the storm, it often brings a large number of fish. Therefore, it is named Fiayu Town. The Fiayu Town stronghold was once a fulcrum of the central defense line of Konoha. As for now, it has become one of the 4 strongholds that were breached by the Hidden Mist village. This time, the mission of their Blackstone stronghold is to recapture this stronghold. And his mission is to use the advantage of flying to scout the movements of the enemy there, so as to provide intelligence for the headquarters to arrange combat plans. Otherwise, how can it be said that this is a good mission? With his current ability, taking advantage of the night action, the Hidden Mist village can hardly do anything to him, and the safety can be said to be very high. The most important thing is that he can also get a lot of credit. Of course, this is also acceptable to the village. After all, the importance of intelligence sometimes far exceeds the combat power of a Jonin. Although his combat power as a Jonin is not worthy of the name, and it is somewhat beyond the scope of a Jonin, it is just so-so on a battlefield with hundreds or thousands of people. Especially when being targeted, it is even more so. That's right. The command center has received news that the Kirigakure village has made special arrangements for flying targets this time. This time, it is almost impossible for him to put out fires everywhere like that night. It is precisely for this reason that the village agreed to Uchiha Qingming's proposal. Otherwise, how could they let such a powerful Jonin like him place soy sauce? A quarter of an hour later, Qingming arrived above the Fiayu Town stronghold. Looking down from the sky, you can see that the entire Fiayu Town stronghold is brightly lit, and there are shadowy figures inside. With the Sharingan opened, Qingming looked closely and found that those people were the Kirigakure team responsible for patrolling. At this time, the entire Fiayu Town stronghold was like a huge machine, and every ninja inside was a gear embedded in it. Together forming this monster called war. It's not easy to fight. After watching for a long time, Qingming couldn't help but sigh. From the layout of the Kirigakure village, it can be seen that they did not choose to advance rashly, but planned to use this town as a starting point, step by step, and gradually expand outward. In this way, if Konoha wants to break through here, it will be a bit difficult to rely on the manpower gathered in the Blackstone stronghold. But it is not realistic to mobilize more manpower. Now, the decisive battle between Konoha and the Sands village has reached a critical moment, and coupled with the containment of the rock village, there is no extra manpower to be mobilized. Oh, it's difficult, Qingming sighed lightly and shook his head, and stopped thinking about it. These things are taken care of by the Konoha high-level officials. Why should he think so much? It is enough to do his own thing. Anyway, Konoha will always be able to drive the Kurigakure village away in the end. With this thought, Qingming once again carefully observed the situation inside and outside the stronghold below, and made records at the same time. These must be submitted, and there cannot be any mistakes. Although he intends to play a minor role in this battle, he still has to have the right attitude. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, Distress. Time passed by minute. Just as Qingming, under the cover of the night and using the powerful insight of the Sharingan, observed the actions of the mist ninjas in the base below and collected intelligence, a crossbow arrow suddenly shot over. Instantly, a strong sense of crisis came over his heart. Almost instinctively, Qingming dodged to the side. The next moment, a crossbow arrow as thick as a baby's arm flew past his shoulder, and the whistling wind it brought made his cheek hurt. This is not over yet. After dodging this attack, the sense of crisis in his heart did not disappear. Qingming's mind quickly flashed the scene of the crossbow arrow flying just now, and it seemed that there were several talismans attached to it. It's a detonating talisman. Qingming was horrified and immediately pushed the wind wings to the limit and flew away from the original place in an instant. Boom boom boom, the explosions of the 3 detonating talismans sounded almost at the same time. The next moment, 3 red fireballs appeared in the air, instantly dispelling the surrounding darkness and illuminating the entire night sky. A figure rushed out of the fire, fell a few meters, and then quickly pulled up. This person was naturally none other than Qingming. Puff, a mouthful of blood spit out from Qingming's mouth. He wiped the corner of his mouth and looked at the fireball in the sky with lingering fear. Just now, he had a close call and almost died in the explosion of the 3 detonating talismans. It was because his wind wings had reached level 3, which allowed him to fly 30 meters per second, otherwise he would have been seriously injured. Even so, he was still injured by the shock wave of the explosion. At this time, he only felt a cramp in his internal organs, as if he was hit by a heavy hammer, and it was indescribably uncomfortable. Compared with this, some burns on his body were nothing. After all, the contact was short and the 2 sides separated quickly, so there was no serious injury. Qingming formed seals with both hands and quickly performed the panacea medical ninjutsu, palm mortal technique, which relieved the injuries on his body, and then looked down. It can be seen that the mist ninja in the Fiayu town stronghold was also very panicked at this time. Obviously, the attack just now was not rehearsed in advance, and it was also very sudden for them, otherwise they would not react like this. However, it was precisely because of this that he was caught off guard. Otherwise, as long as the mist ninja below made a slight movement, he would be able to detect it. At that time, with a vigilant heart, he would not be in such a risk. However, in 1,000 words, he was still not vigilant enough and underestimated the hidden mist village. Indeed, he had always said that after that night, the hidden mist village would definitely take targeted measures, and the command center also received the corresponding news. However, from the bottom of his heart, he still did not raise too high a vigilance. There was no way. From the memory of his previous life, he clearly knew that although the major ninja villages in the ninja world had means to deal with aerial targets, they were really not many. Most of them could only play a harassing role. As for those who could actually restrain it, there were almost none. It was precisely because of this that he instinctively relaxed his vigilance. In this way, he naturally suffered. It must be said that the hidden mist village taught him a lesson, letting him know that arrogance is unacceptable at any time. Retracting all his thoughts, Qingming calmed his mind, moved his eyes away from the panicked crowd, and looked in the direction where the crossbow arrow came from. It can be seen that there is a top of a building, with 3 figures on it, struggling to control a crossbow cart. Obviously, the crossbow arrow just now was fired by it. At this time, another crossbow arrow was installed on it. A faint sense of crisis came to his mind, and Qingming immediately became alert. The next moment, the crossbow arrow flew out, aiming directly at his chest. However, This time Qingming was prepared, and his Sharingan shrank slightly, and he instantly distinguished the flight trajectory of the crossbow arrow. Then, he flapped his wings and easily dodged it. Boom boom boom, 3 explosions sounded again in succession. The rolling heat wave hit, blowing Qingming's long hair away. However, this time Qingming was not hurt at all. However, before Qingming could breathe a sigh of relief, 3 more crossbow arrows were shot at him. Qingming looked carefully and saw that on the top of another building, 3 crossbow carts were arranged in a shape, and there were 9 figures beside them. Obviously, these 3 crossbow arrows were shot by them. However, when he glanced over just now, there was nothing there. Obviously, the hidden mist village had used some means to cover up these crossbow carts and the people who controlled them. Faintly, Qingming had some understanding in his heart. Then, he thought, are there any crossbow carts hidden in other places? With this thought, Qingming quickly glanced at several other taller buildings, then controlled the chakra wings behind him and flew into the sky. However, the next moment, several more crossbow arrows were shot at him. Qingming glanced over and saw that there were indeed crossbow carts in the places he had just scanned. Then, he flapped his wings, adjusted the direction of flight, and avoided the shooting of these crossbow arrows again. And this is just the beginning. Next, a continuous stream of crossbow arrows were fired from the crossbow carts below, either shooting directly at his body or blocking his dodging trajectory. In short, one by one, they all wanted to kill him. Unfortunately, as he continued to fly upwards, he had more and more time to react. Correspondingly, the threat these crossbow arrows could bring to him became less and less. Boom boom boom, detonating talismans exploded in the air, and the resulting fireballs, like fireworks, illuminated the entire night sky. Qingming rushed left and right, and finally escaped from the attack range of all crossbow arrows. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. Although he encountered some dangers tonight, it was also a stepping stone for the subsequent battles. If there was no incident tonight, if he suddenly encountered the attack of these crossbow arrows in the subsequent battles, combined with the attack of the Mist Ninja, he might be in even greater danger. It can only be said that the Mist Village was anxious. However, he could understand the other party. After all, his flying altitude was indeed a bit low just now, and he was not very vigilant. It was indeed a rare opportunity. Unfortunately, his reaction was too fast, and he finally managed to escape the crisis by relying on his hard power. Sure enough, at any time, one's own strength is the most important, so that even if there are some mistakes, there will be a chance to remedy them. Qingming once again determined to improve his strength. Putting these thoughts in his heart for the time being, Qingming's mind moved, opened the main Gekkai of Sharingan, and then looked down. It can be seen that at this time, the Kurigakure has stopped attacking, and all the crossbow carts have been exposed. 1, 2, 3, Qingming's eyes swept through these crossbow carts one by one, and he kept muttering. In the end, he determined that the Kurigakure village had deployed a total of 21 crossbow carts. According to its previous firing speed, so many crossbow carts work at the same time. If there are enough crossbow arrows, it can fire about 30 to 40 crossbow arrows per minute. In other words, an average of 1 arrow per 1.5 to 2 seconds. If it's just like this, it's nothing. As long as the distance is not too close, Qingming's reaction speed can basically dodge it. But the key point is that the flying speed of these crossbow arrows is too fast, and the kinetic energy they carry is very large, which requires him not to make any mistakes. Otherwise, if they touch it, they will die. In this way, plus the range of the detonating talisman, there is no doubt that it is enough to threaten him. After that, I must be more careful, Qingming thought. But then he thought of a problem, that is, how did the hidden mist village transport so many crossbow carts and crossbow arrows? You know, he exposed his ability of flying ninjutsu the night before yesterday, and it has been less than 48 hours since then. Even if the hidden mist village has a deep foundation and has reserves of these things, it is impossible to transport them so quickly. After all, this place is not close to the hidden mist village. It's impossible that the hidden mist village has foresight and arranged in advance, right? Qingming said self-deprecatingly. Wait. Suddenly, Qingming thought that it seemed that the transportation of supplies in the ninja world did not have to be step by step. For such an important thing, they can completely let a ninja who is proficient in space ninjutsu seal it in a scroll. Then, whether sending ninjas to escort them personally or using the reverse summoning technique to cheat, they can be delivered quickly. And considering the size of the hidden mist village, it should not be difficult to find 2 such ninjas. Sure enough, we still can't underestimate the foundation and adaptability of these big ninja villages. With a final mutter, Qingming no longer paid attention to the mist ninjas in the base below, and flew straight to the direction of the Blackstone base. Tonight, his mission has been completed, and there are extra gains, so there is no need to stay any longer. Chapter 393 Thoughts and Arrangements. Below. In Fiyu Town, a mist ninja wearing a navy blue robe removed his index and middle fingers from his right eye. It can be seen that his right eye was covered by a layer of black cloth, and there were faint traces of a sealing technique on it. This person was none other than the mist hidden ninja, Qing, who was known as the Baiyan Killer. His covered right eye was a Byakugan. It was also with the ability to see far and see through this Byakugan that he discovered Qingming flying in the air in advance. Then, there was this attack. Unfortunately, Qingming's reaction exceeded their expectations, and they failed to knock him down in the end. Seeing Qing put down his right hand, the mist-hidden ninja standing beside him said, "How is it?" Qing shook his head and said, "He's gone." "Oh, what a pity." Hearing this, the mist-hidden ninja sighed. However, another mist-hidden ninja did not show any regrets. Then he said calmly, "It's nothing to regret. We were in a hurry this time, so it's normal that we couldn't keep him." At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing, "It's just right. Let's treat this as practice. We can do better next time." "Better," Qing murmured, his eyes unconsciously drifting to the direction where Qingming left, thinking to himself, "They have accumulated experience this time, but so has the other party. When the other party is wary next time, it won't be as easy to deal with as today." With this thought, Qing looked at the crossbow carts on the top of the building. These things are too rigid after all, whether it is transportation or use. Although its power is good, it is still a little bit short of the point when used against people, especially Qingming also has a pair of Sharingan, with amazing insight, which makes it even more difficult. It seems that it can only be used as a deterrent from now on, Qing kept thinking in his heart, trying to find a way to deal with Qingming. On the other side, after more than 10 minutes of flying, Qingming finally returned to the Blackstone base. At this time, it was close to midnight. However, the situation at the Blackstone stronghold was the same as that at the Flying Fish Town stronghold, with lights on. In addition to the patrolling ninjas, there were also personnel on duty at the command center. Obviously, before the war, both sides were very vigilant. There was no such thing as day and night, and they were on high alert at all times. Qingming didn't waste time and immediately submitted the intelligence he had collected. Not only that, he also reported that the hidden mist village had obtained 21 crossbow carts from nowhere. Although these were most likely used to deal with him, it didn't prevent him from saying it. In this way, on the one hand, he could show the outside world that his mission was not so easy, and on the other hand, he could let the village think of ways to see if they could destroy those crossbow carts. If he could really do it, he would have a little more sense of security in the subsequent war. However, Qingming estimated that the village was unlikely to do this. Without him, as long as the hidden mist commander had no problem with his brain, he would not relax the protection of those crossbow carts. How could he easily let people destroy them? Therefore, Qingming didn't hold much hope. Rather than expecting the village to do this, it would be better for him to take advantage of the next intelligence gathering to see if he can find an opportunity to destroy a few. Of course, these are the most direct means, and there is also a roundabout way, that is, to develop a ninjutsu that can hide the body. In this way, the enemy cannot see him and will naturally not launch an attack, and his safety can be guaranteed. However, Qingming did not know that the person who discovered him tonight was Qing. Even if he could be invisible, it would be impossible to hide from the inside of the Byakugan. So, it is useless. However, not everyone has the Byakugan, and he learned the ninjutsu to hide his body not just for this war. Therefore, even if he knew that he was exposed tonight because of Qing's Byakugan, he would not give up learning stealth-related ninjutsu. Speaking of stealth ability, it seems that the Hidden Rock Village has such a ninjutsu, called camouflage hidden technique. Back then, when he was still in the battlefield of the Rain Country, when he was carrying out the task of raiding the Hidden Rock Village's logistics material transfer center in the Rain Country with a team, his companion, Mizutani Shizuko, was approached and killed by the Hidden Rock Village senior ninja, Ohara Hidiji, using this technique. At that time, if it wasn't for Shizuko Mizutani who pushed him at the critical moment, He might have died in the hands of the other party. That was the first time he was so close to death. Although he had taken revenge later, that scene still left a deep impression on him. It can be said that this technique perfectly meets his requirements. The only pity is that the camouflage hidden technique is considered a secret technique in the Hidden Rock village. Not to mention him, it is not easy for the Hidden Rock ninja himself to learn this technique. This is a trouble, Qingming muttered in his heart. However, he was not in a hurry. After all, his earth attribute chakra has not been successfully developed. Even if the opportunity is in front of him now, he has no way to learn it. So, let's lay a good foundation first. With this thought, Qingming no longer stayed. After leaving the headquarters, he immediately rushed to his residence. After returning to the house, he first treated his own injuries, and then began to practice. Recently, the war may break out at any time, and there are many people in the stronghold, so it is not easy for him to split a shadow clone for all-round practice. But this does not mean that the chakra he recovers every day will be wasted. Qingming raised his hands, crossed them to form the character seal, and performed the shadow clone technique as usual. The next moment, accompanied by a puff of chakra smoke, 3 shadow clones appeared in the field. Qingming went directly to one person and asked him to be responsible for the development of Earth Attribute Chakra. Then, he looked at the second person and asked him to think about the development of the heart communication technique. He has been thinking about this since he learned the flying ninjutsu. With his previous actual feelings and experience, he felt that he was almost there. Once this technique is successfully developed, the communication between him and the shadow clone will no longer rely on the removal of the shadow clone technique. In this way, when he encounters the enemy in the future, he will not have to worry about whether to pass on information or provide combat power. After the second shadow clone left, Qingming looked at the third shadow clone. The job that Qingming assigned to this shadow clone was to carry out the preliminary theoretical work of the development of the shadow sword technique. That is, think about how to develop the Shuriken shadow clone technique based on the shadow clone technique. Undoubtedly, this is not a simple task. So, until now, there is not much clue. However, compared with developing flying ninjutsu from scratch, developing the Shuriken shadow clone technique is undoubtedly much simpler. After all, it has a foundation, and he also has relevant concepts in his mind. Just like developing the wind-style Rasen Shuriken based on the Rasengan, although no one taught him, he still succeeded quickly. Therefore, Qingming felt that developing the Shuriken shadow clone technique would not waste too much time. After arranging the 3 shadow clones, Qingming himself came to a corner of the house, sat cross-legged, and began to perform the reflection heart technique and the palm immortal technique in turn. Nowadays, his tasks are concentrated at night, so the only few hours of sleep time are directly moved to the daytime by him. Therefore, tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. Chapter 394 Mission. In a flash, time came to the afternoon of the next day. In the room, Qingming opened his mouth and yawned fiercely. At this time, his eyes were blurry and his face was full of fatigue. It seemed that he would fall asleep in the next second. Obviously, he was extremely sleepy. In fact, it was true. In the past 10 hours, except for going out to eat, he spent all his time on cultivation, which not only consumed a lot of chakra, it was also a great test for his spirit. Therefore, he was so tired. With a thought, Qingming raised his hand to cancel the shadow clone technique. The next moment, 3 strands of chakra wrapped with 3 sections of memory flowed into his mind, which lifted his spirit. But this was only a temporary solution. After Qingming digested these memories, he felt even more tired. He looked up at the sky outside the window. At this time, the sun was already setting. Seeing that it was only a few hours before dark, and he had to go out to perform a mission tonight, Qingming simply stopped practicing. He stood up and came to the bed. The moment he relaxed, he fell on the bed and fell asleep in a breath. Time passed by. In the blink of an eye, night had fallen. At a certain moment, Qingming suddenly opened his eyes. The next moment, there was a knock on the door. Qingming let go of his senses and instantly found a person outside. Through his breath, he recognized the person as a messenger Chunin next to the commanding Jonin. After confirming this, he relaxed a little, stood up and tidied up his appearance, and then opened the door. Looking at the other party, Qingming asked directly, "What's the matter?" Hearing this, the Konoha Chunin outside the door handed over a task scroll and said, "Qingming Jonin, Captain Nabuhisa asked me to inform you that tonight's task has changed. Hearing this, Qingming took the task scroll without changing his expression, opened it, and said slowly, "Continue." Seeing Qingming so calm, Ichiro Nakagawa secretly admired him. However, he did not think much about it and immediately told everything that Nobuhisa had told him. The village has just received intelligence that a group of support may arrive tonight from the Hidden Mist village. The captain wants you to confirm the authenticity of this news. If it is true, you need to judge the strength and number of these people. In addition, finally, he added, the enemy's marching route is in the scroll. After listening to the other party's narration, Qingming did not speak for a long time, but just looked at the content on the scroll seriously. Basically, it was similar to what the other party said. Indeed, it seems that a group of mist ninjas will come from the forward base tonight, but the village does not know the exact number. Therefore, he needs to use his flying advantage to conduct reconnaissance. As for the marching route, there are 3 on the scroll. Obviously, the spies planted by Konoha are not in a very high position, and the intelligence they get is ambiguous. Among these 3 routes, it is likely that only one is true. And these routes are far apart, and only ninjas like him who have mastered the ability to fly can complete the reconnaissance in a short time. For other people, there is no good way except to cast a wide net. Moreover, compared with these people, he has another advantage, that is, even if he is discovered, it is no big deal. Because he can fly away, he does not need to worry about his own safety. As for the crossbow cart, indeed, the arrangement of the mist hidden in Fiayu town last night caught him off guard. However, don't forget that from the forward base to here, you can only take the sea route. In other words, take a boat. In this case, even if the other party carries a crossbow cart, it will not be effective. Therefore, Qingming does not have to worry about safety issues at all. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming put away the scroll and said to Ichiro Nakagawa, "Okay, I already know the mission, you can go back and report." "Yes, Qingming Junin." Hearing this, Ichiro Nakagawa responded, and then turned and left. Watching him leave, Qingming also returned to the house. He first washed up to clear his head, and then ate something to fill his stomach before setting off, an hour later. On a route from Fiayu town to the Land of Waves, Qingming hovered in the air, his 3 Magatama Sharingan opened, and with the help of the bright moonlight, he carefully observed the sea below. However, he had stayed here for nearly half an hour, and after checking the area of more than 10 kilometers, he found no trace of the mist ninja. "It seems that this route is fake," Qingming murmured, and was about to leave, but he suddenly stopped and fell directly onto the sea. The next moment, the chakra wings behind him disappeared, and the wind-style, wind wings was released by him. Then, he raised his hands, crossed them to form the Ren seal, and performed the shadow clone technique. Bang! Accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke, a shadow clone appeared in the field. Qingming nodded at each other, and then the 2 of them formed seals at the same time. The next moment, a pair of chakra wings grew out from behind the 2 of them, which was the ninjutsu, wind-style, wind wings. Whoosh whoosh! 2 consecutive sounds of breaking through the air sounded. The 2 flew back up to the sky, and the shadow clone continued to hover near this route, monitoring the possible arrival of the Kirigakure support force. And he himself rushed to the next route. That's right, Qingming did so much just to leave a shadow clone here for monitoring. And the reason why he landed to perform this technique was because his wind-style, wind wings had not been fully practiced. Although after a long flight last night, his level was close to LV4, he still couldn't separate a shadow clone with chakra wings. Therefore, he could only land on the sea temporarily. It must be said that this is very troublesome. However, when his wind-style, wind wings is upgraded by 1 or 2 levels and reaches the level of LV4 or LV5, it should not be so troublesome. Thinking of this, Qingming flapped his wings and flew straight into the distance. Half an hour later, Qingming roughly searched the second route, but still found nothing. This time, Qingming did not stay. He did the same thing, leaving a shadow clone to monitor, and then went to the third route. When he came to the third route, he still found nothing. However, Qingming was not in a hurry. Now all 3 routes were under his control, and he just had to wait patiently. It happened that he had nothing to do now, so he could take some time to study the heart communication technique, which was not far from success. If it could succeed, then the connection between him and the other 2 shadow clones would become very easy. With this thought in mind, Qingming began to recall the relevant memories in his mind. After a while, He began to follow the path that the shadow clones had paved in the past and continued to walk down. Chapter 395 Success and Discovery. Time passed by minute. Gradually, Qingming entered a strange state. At this moment, his perception of the outside world was reduced to the lowest, and the various experiences and memories summarized by the past shadow clones kept surfacing in his heart. This made Qingming's development of new ninjutsu seem to be assisted by God, and he couldn't stop at all. Originally, it was only one step away from success. But now, one foot has stepped directly into it. I don't know how much time has passed. At a certain moment, Qingming suddenly opened his eyes. Then, a ray of brilliance flashed in his eyes. Qingming stood there in a daze for a moment. Then, he raised his hands, slowly formed seals, and at the same time mobilized the chakra in his body, and then followed the induction in the dark and performed the ninjutsu, the art of communicating with the mind. The next moment, a voice sounded in his mind. Did it succeed? This voice was not someone else's, but his own. However, the person who spoke was not him, but a shadow clone dozens of kilometers away. Hearing this inquiry, Qingming nodded and replied in his mind, "Yes, I have successfully developed the mind-connecting technique. Unfortunately, even if you tell me now, I can't learn it. I can only wait until the next fusion," the shadow clone replied. "Yes," Qingming simply responded, and then asked, "How is the situation over there? Have you found any traces of the mist ninja?" "No," the shadow clone replied concisely. "Okay, you continue to monitor," Qingming gave a final instruction and then disconnected. Opening his eyes, Qingming recalled his feelings just now and felt very novel. Then, he had an idea and opened the proficiency panel. On it, a new skill was added to the skill column, Mind Connecting Technique, LV0, 1/100. Looking at the LV0, 1/100, proficiency, Qingming knew that he could only be considered to have successfully developed this ninjutsu, and it could not be considered as an entry level. The reason why he could reach the shadow clone over a distance of dozens of kilometers before he even got started was because there was already a connection between him and the shadow clone. Using this as a medium, he could naturally save a lot of effort. In addition, when developing this ninjutsu, his first goal was to strengthen the connection between the main body and the shadow clone. Now that he succeeded, his ability in this area is naturally very outstanding. On the contrary, if you were to use this technique to contact a person who has no relationship with him, even if he tried his best, it would be unlikely to succeed. Only after successfully advancing to level 1 and truly getting started, his heart-to-heart technique could play an effect similar to the Yamanaka clan's heart-to-heart secret technique. With this in mind, Qingming simply split another shadow clone, allowing him to use the existence of the other two shadow clones to brush up on the proficiency of the heart-to-heart technique. As for himself, he naturally continued to practice the heart-reflecting technique and the palm fairy technique. Let's not talk about the heart-reflecting technique. If his main Uchiha Sharingan wants to enter the next stage, according to the current progress, it will take 2 or 3 months, which is impossible. As for the palm immortal technique, his proficiency has improved significantly after practicing day and night for the past 2 days. His body has already reached a critical point of transformation. Qingming estimated that in a day or two, he could try to open the main Uchiha Sharingan and use the ability of the human guard to guide the body's evolution. Thinking of this, Qingming gradually immersed himself in the practice. In a flash, the time came to the second half of the night. Near the second root, Qingming's shadow clone was constantly flying, which was not only to monitor the movements of the sea below, but also to improve the proficiency of the wind style, wind wings. Just like the Rasengan, the proficiency of the wind style, wind wings can also be improved in 2 ways. One is to practice repeatedly. The other is to maintain the effect of the ninjutsu. And flying is the effect of the wind style, wind wings. Therefore, by maintaining the flying posture, his wind style, wind wings can continuously gain proficiency. If he tries some other actions, the speed of gaining proficiency will be even faster. It is for this reason that his wind style, wind wings has improved so quickly in the past 2 days. Similarly, it is this operation that prevents his chakra from being wasted. After all, whether it is practicing the reflection heart technique to promote the evolution of the Sharingan, or performing the palm immortal technique to strengthen the body, or developing new ninjutsu, the chakra consumed is very limited. If there is no wind style, wind wings to consume, then at least half of his daily restored chakra will be wasted. Now it is different. These chakras can be used to improve the wind style, wind wings. Of course, there will definitely be a lot of waste, but compared to doing nothing, it is undoubtedly much more cost-effective. While Qingming was brushing up his proficiency while monitoring the movements below, 4 large ships suddenly appeared at the edge of his vision. Qingming suddenly stopped, opened his Sharingan, and stared at that place. Yes, it is indeed the warships of Kirigakure, Qingming murmured. He saw the unique logo of Kirigakure on those ships. After confirming this, Qingming planned to notify the main body to come over. However, just when he was about to cancel the shadow clone technique, an invisible connection appeared on his body. At this time, Qingming remembered that there was another shadow clone who was using him and another shadow clone to improve their proficiency in the heart-to-heart technique. In the past period of time, in order to concentrate on practicing the wind style, wind wings, he chose to ignore the connection that appeared from time to time. He almost forgot that there was this one. Now, the other party just connected, which saved him a lot of trouble. But it must be fast. With this thought, Qingming hurriedly shouted in his heart, "Wait!" The next moment, the connection that was about to be disconnected was abruptly stopped. Then, a familiar voice came over. "What's wrong? I found traces of the mist ninja here," Qingming replied directly. "Okay, I already know, I will tell the main body immediately," the voice replied again. "Okay," Qingming said, and felt that the inexplicable connection disappeared. A moment later, another connection appeared. This time, it was the main body that performed the heart communication technique. "What's the specific situation over there?" Qingming asked directly. "In the field of vision, I saw 4 mist-hidden warships. They should not have discovered me for the time being. Do you need me to get closer to observe?" the shadow clone replied. Hearing this, Qingming thought for a moment and said, "Okay, you fly higher and pay attention to concealment. I will come right over." "Okay," the shadow clone finally replied and flew in the direction of the mist-hidden warship. Similarly, Qingming was also rushing over there with all his strength. Chapter 396, Surprise. Over the second route, Qingming's shadow clone came silently to the top of the 4 mist-hidden ships like a ghost in the dark night. Although there were no lights on the 4 mist-hidden ships, he could still see the figures on them with the powerful insight of the Sharingan. However, he could only see the figures on the deck and the side of the ship. As for the people in the cabin, it was not possible. Even if it was the ninjas on the deck and the side of the ship, he could not judge their strength. After all, in order to prevent being discovered, he flew too high and could not see carefully. At this time, if he had a Byakugan, he could easily complete the task, that is, to determine the number and strength of these mist ninjas. Unfortunately, he did not have one. Maybe, I should find an opportunity to get a Byakugan. Suddenly, this thought came to Qingming's mind. It is undeniable that the Sharingan's ability in many aspects exceeds the Byakugan, but it is far inferior in reconnaissance. If he can obtain a Byakugan and master it, then to a certain extent, this defect can be made up. And as luck would have it, there is now a Byakugan wandering outside. Qing might be a good target. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming temporarily suppressed these thoughts, flapped his wings slightly, and followed the gradually receding mist-hidden ship. Time passed by minute. About 20 minutes later, Qingming's real body arrived at the scene. After finding the shadow clone, he asked directly, "What's the situation? You see for yourself." Hearing this, the shadow clone replied. After speaking, he directly lifted the shadow clone technique. The next moment, a memory emerged in Qingming's mind. Qingming closed his eyes slightly and quickly browsed these memories. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and said softly, "Can I get the Byakugan from Qing? If there's a chance, I can try it." After speaking, he closed his eyes again. After a while, he finally had a preliminary understanding of the mist ninja below. However, that was all. After all, the shadow clone did not observe closely, and the information obtained was not much. It's up to me now. With this thought, Qingming used the mind-connecting technique to remove the shadow clone technique from the shadow clone that was hovering near the first root. The next moment, another stream of chakra returned to the main body with a memory. Qingming closed his eyes slightly, but soon, he opened his eyes again, and a look of joy that was difficult to conceal appeared on his face. Originally, he took back this shadow clone in order to enhance his own strength. Unexpectedly, it actually brought him an unexpected surprise. That is, his wind style, wind wings, was promoted. That's right, after he digested the memory of this shadow clone, the wind style, wind wings on the panel was directly upgraded to level 4. In an instant, Qingming felt that his understanding of the ninjutsu of wind style, wind wings had risen to a higher level. As a result, he was dissatisfied with a pair of chakra wings behind him. As a perfectionist, Qingming could not tolerate such a defect before taking action. Looking down at the mist ninja warship below, Qingming's mind moved, and he controlled the chakra wings behind him to flap gently, and flew away silently. Soon, he was more than 10 kilometers away. After confirming that the mist ninja would never notice the movement here, Qingming landed on the sea and released the wind style, wind wings. Then, without saying a word, he once again formed a seal to mobilize chakra according to his latest understanding and performed the wind style, wind wings. The next moment, a pair of light blue chakra wings reappeared behind him. Compared with LV3, after being promoted to LV4, the chakra wings he condensed were obviously more compact. Now, the length of a single wing is only about 1 meter. Although it is still a little big compared to his body size, it is generally much more coordinated. Qingming controlled the chakra wings behind him to flap a few times, and it felt much more flexible than before. However, the specifics still need to be tested. With this thought, Qingming flew directly into the sky and began to test the extreme performance of the LV4 wind style, wind wings. With a series of air-breaking sounds, Qingming flapped his chakra wings and continued to fly in the air. After a while, he finally completed the test. As for the result, it was not bad. First, it was flexibility. Compared with LV3, after being promoted to LV4, his wings were indeed more flexible, which made his flying posture easier to control. In this way, he could make more moves in a small range. Facing such a person, it would undoubtedly be much more difficult for the enemy to attack. Secondly, it was the flying speed. At LV3, he performed wind style, wind wings and could fly at the fastest speed of 30 meters per second, which is 108 kilometers per hour. Now, it can fly to 40 meters per second, which is 144 kilometers per hour. Although this speed is still not as fast as that of a civil airliner, it has exceeded most cars. In this way, Qingming can reach the same distance in a shorter time. Finally, it is the consumption of chakra. Although it has been improved, the extent of the improvement is not very large, and it has not affected its practicality. Qingming is very satisfied with this. The only pity is that even if he is promoted to level 4, he still cannot directly split a shadow clone with chakra wings. Qingming estimates that this may have to wait until his wind style, wind wings is promoted to level 5. What a pity. With a sigh, Qingming shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He flapped his wings and flew towards the direction of the Kurigakure warship. His own affairs have been dealt with, and the next step is to carry out the task assigned by the village. A few minutes later, on a Kurigakure warship, a Kurigakure Chunin was on duty on the deck, and suddenly he felt that his eyes went dark, and the light above his head seemed to be blocked by something. He looked up and saw a black shadow flying quickly under the moonlight. It had a pair of wings, like a big bird. However, the ninja's intuition told him that this was not a big bird. So he looked closely. Then, under the shadow, he saw a pair of blood-red eyes. On top of them, there were 3 dark black Magatama. Is this Sharingan? The mist ninja was horrified and wanted to warn immediately. However, it was too late. When he saw the eyes, he had already fallen into the illusion. It was undoubtedly a pipe dream to make a sound at this time. After controlling the opponent with a genjutsu, Sharingan, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and instantly increased his speed to the maximum and dived down. Who is it? Next to him, another mist ninja not far away noticed the abnormality, and threw the kunai in his hand while warning. However, Qingming just tilted his head slightly to avoid the attack. Then, he passed over the deck of the ship like a dragonfly skimming the water, and when he climbed up again, there was already a figure in his hand. This person was none other than the mist-hidden ninja who had just been controlled by him with a genjutsu, Sharingan. That's right, Qingming's way of completing the mission was so simple and direct. With his Kurigakure Chunin in hand, he could easily obtain the intelligence required in the mission. Next, he just had to evacuate safely. Chapter 397 Leaving. Swoosh, 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 more kunai flew over. The shout of the mist ninja just now still attracted the attention of many people. When these people saw Qingming trying to fly away, they immediately threw the kunai and shuriken in their hands and attacked Qingming together. However, Qingming was like a fish in the water, extremely flexible, twisting his body to avoid all attacks. He was about to fly away. Suddenly, a column of water shot from another mist-hidden warship not far away, shooting at his chest at a very fast speed. Sensing the danger, Qingming frowned slightly, and suddenly moved sideways to avoid the attack. However, with this delay, more mist ninjas walked out of the cabin. Among them, those who were close to them directly launched an attack, or threw kunai, or shot shurikens, or performed ninjutsu and jinjutsu. In short, there was only one goal, which was to delay his pace of leaving as much as possible. At the same time, those who were relatively far away jumped off the warship directly, stepped on the seawater, and rushed straight towards him. Seeing this scene, Qingming's face turned slightly cold. Then, he raised his left hand, completed the seal in an instant, and then took a deep breath and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. In an instant, the sky and the earth changed color. A hurricane blew out of his mouth, like a typhoon passing through, blowing towards the people below. At this moment, let alone the mist ninjas who tried to approach, even the 4 warships were shaking and there was a risk of capsizing. Be careful, everyone hold steady, don't leave the warships. Noisy voices came from the 4 warships, and it can be seen that the mist ninjas on them were very panicked. After a few breaths, the strong wind stopped. Qingming took advantage of the fact that the mist ninjas had not yet reacted, and used all his strength to perform wind style, wind wings, holding the mist-hidden ninja in his hand and flew high into the sky. Seeing this, several mist-hidden ninjas performed their last means of attack. Unfortunately, they still couldn't do anything to Qingming. So, they had no choice but to give up. However, they gave up, but Qingming was not in a hurry to leave. He circled around the 4 mist ninja warships for a long time, carefully observed the mist ninjas on them several times, and then left slowly. Looking at Qingming's departing back, although they didn't say it, these mist ninjas all breathed a sigh of relief unconsciously. There was no way, Qingming was too shameless. If they had been entangled with him here, it would have been difficult to deal with. Fortunately, he left. After confirming this, the leader of the mist ninja began to organize people to treat the wounded. Although the conflict just lasted only a while, the harm caused by Qingming's wind style, great breakthrough was not small at all. Not to mention those who were injured because of the shaking of the ship, there were quite a few people who were injured by the kunai and shuriken that flew back. To a certain extent, they also deserved it. If they hadn't thrown so many kunai and shuriken at once, his wind style, great breakthrough would not have caused such great damage. However, everything is over, on the other side. After leaving the side of the mist ninja, Qingming flew out for 20 to 30 kilometers in one breath, and then found a reef to land on. Qingming pulled out a long sword at his waist, infused it with wind chakra, and with a few swipes, he leveled out a place to stand. Bang! Qingming threw down the mist ninja in his hand. The mist ninja woke up immediately after being hit. His eyes were confused at first, but when he saw Qingming's figure, he immediately woke up and asked vigilantly, "What are you going to do?" While speaking, his right hand touched the ninja tool bag on his waist. However, the next moment, a flash of knife light flashed, and his right hand fell directly to the ground, and blood gushed out. The severe pain made the mist ninja scream. However, the sound did not last long and stopped abruptly. The Sharingan in Qingming's eyes turned slightly, and the illusion Sharingan was directly cast by him, and began to guide the other party to recall the information he needed. Time passed by every second. About half an hour later, Qingming stopped performing the illusion. At this time, the mist-hidden ninja regained consciousness. Then, his face turned pale. Obviously, he knew very well what information he had leaked. The mist-hidden ninja wanted to say something. But Qingming didn't want to waste words with him, so he saw him complete the seal in an instant, then stretched out his right hand and grabbed the other's neck. The next moment, a large amount of chakra flowed out of the other's body, through his palm meridians, transformed into his own chakra, and filled his body. A meaningless sound came out of the mouth of the mist-hidden ninja. His eyes widened, and his left hand grabbed Qingming's wrist, as if he wanted to pry it open. Unfortunately, the rapid loss of chakra made his physical strength quickly deplete, and he couldn't do it at all. A few seconds later, Qingming loosened his palm. At this time, the mist-hidden ninja had completely lost his life. 6,000 chakra points. Feeling the newly added chakra in his body, Qingming muttered, then formed a seal with one hand and performed a ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. A fist-sized fireball fell on the mist ninja, and with a bang, a blazing flame ignited. Looking at the burning body of the other party, Qingming recalled the information he got from his mind. Comparing it with the situation he observed after the short battle just now, he basically confirmed the number and strength of this mist hidden support force. In this way, his mission was completed. After waiting for a while, when the body of the mist ninja in front of him was burned out, he raised his hand to form a seal and performed wind-style, wind wings. Then, with a flap of his wings, he flew in the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. Half an hour later, near the stronghold, high in the sky, Qingming seemed to have thought of something, and suddenly turned 90 degrees and flew in another direction. A few minutes later, he found a group of reefs. Qingming glanced around and confirmed that there was no one. He lowered his altitude and performed the ninjutsu, wind-style, wind blade. Swoosh! A giant wind blade appeared and flattened a group of rocks. Qingming landed on it, nodded with satisfaction, and then performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. Bang! Accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke, several shadow clones appeared in the field. Qingming didn't waste any words and directly gave instructions to these shadow clones, asking them to practice here. He himself returned to the base. Obviously, he was going to resume his old business and use the shadow clones to speed up his practice. The reason why he didn't do this in the past 2 days was that the war was imminent and it was not appropriate to be distracted, and secondly, there were too many people in the base and it was not convenient. Now, from the mind of the mist-hidden ninja, he knew that the war should not break out for the time being in the next few days. In this way, plus he has successfully developed the heart communication technique, which allows him to communicate with his shadow clones over long distances. He can make full use of the chakra in his body. This is what he thought and did. Chapter 398 Promotion. In a flash, time came to the beginning of September. Since he reported the situation he had discovered 2 days ago, he has not received any strange tasks. So, in the days that followed, apart from flying to Fiayu Town to observe the movements of the Mist Ninja, he spent the rest of his time practicing madly. And with his efforts, he finally reaped the rewards. At noon that day, Qingming completed the strengthening of the palm immortal technique again, and suddenly felt that his whole body was full of strength, as if he could enter a new level in the next moment. However, Qingming knew that this was just his illusion. Indeed, now his physical foundation has reached the current limit. In theory, if he goes one step further, he will step into a new world. But this step is not so easy to take. Without sufficient talent and qualifications, no matter how close you are, you can't succeed. This is an invisible shackle that limits everyone's growth. At this time, if other people encounter this situation, there is basically no good way except to grind slowly. But Qingming is different. He has human control. Thinking of this, Qingming instantly opened the Mangekyo Sharingan. In an instant, his pupils turned blood red, and 3 Magatama appeared, then stretched and quickly merged into the shape of a black sun. Without wasting time, Qingming directly activated a pupil technique that resided in his left eye, the human control. Immediately, a strange power acted on him, allowing him to have a deeper grasp of everything about himself. Qingming's mind moved, and while performing the palm immortal technique to strengthen his body, he began to guide his body to evolve in the direction he desired. Crack! It was like the sound of something breaking in his ears. As the yang release chakra condensed by the latest palm immortal technique invaded the depths of his cells, Qingming felt that the invisible shackles that had previously restricted his body from further advancement were instantly broken. The next moment, a continuous force grew from the depths of his cells, and Qingming felt as if he was soaking in a hot spring, extremely comfortable. Qingming groaned, revoked the power of the human control, and then closed the Mangekyo Sharingan, allowing his body to follow instinct and begin to transform on its own. Gradually, he closed his eyes. Time passed by minute. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming opened his eyes again. He moved his body and felt as if a layer of shackles had been removed from his body. He felt extremely relaxed. Qingming knew that this was not an illusion. As his body transformed, the upper limit of his physical body was opened again. With room for improvement, wouldn't he feel relaxed? It was like a person who was about to suffocate suddenly got a supply of oxygen and naturally breathed a sigh of relief. Panel. With a thought, Qingming summoned the proficiency panel. The next moment, the familiar light blue light screen appeared. Name, Uchiha Qingming. Age, 12 years old. Constitution, 1819. Spirit, 20 chakra. 85,000, 94,772,109,172, Bloodline, Sharingan, Mangekyo, 10000/50000, 12880/50000, Skills, Chakra Refining Technique, LV5, 2183, 5000, LV5, 2630, 5000, Wind Style, Recentrican, LV7, 1/20000, LV7, 5900/20000, Wind Style, Wind Wings, LV4, 650/2000, Water Style, Water Array Wall, LV6, 460 out of 10,000, LV6, 7360 10,000, Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet Technique, LV6, 250 out of 10,000, LV6, 7150 10,000, Water Style, Great Shark Bullet Technique, LV5, 101/5000, LV5, 3200/5000, Shadow Clone Technique, LV5, 385/5000, LV5, 1025, 5000, Chakra Absorption Technique, LV6, 250 out of 10,000, LV6, 820/10000, Rasengan, LV6, 9710 10,000, LV7, 7,820,000, Mind Opening Technique, LV2, 20/500, Palm Immortal Technique, LV8, 17514/50000, LV8, 28500/50000, Chakra Scalpel, LV6, 100/10000, LV6, 4500/10000, Fine Wound Extraction Technique, LV5, 30/5000, LV5, 4100/5000, Heart Reflection Technique, LV8, 9539/50000, LV8, 15299/50000, Instant Sword Technique, LV6, 1410/10000, LV6, 5500/10000, Chakra Control, LV5, 3482/5000, LV5, 4550/5000, Perfect Skill, Phantom Sword Technique, LV7, 0/0, without any surprise. With this physical transformation, his constitution attribute increased a little again, from the original 18 points to the current 19 points. Qingming felt it carefully and preliminarily estimated that the improvement of the physique attribute this time could theoretically increase his chakra limit by 70,000 points. Although it was not as good as the last 80,000 points, it was not a small amount. After all, the last time the spiritual attribute broke through the 20-point mark from 19 points, it was normal to have a larger improvement. Despite this, his theoretical chakra limit has also increased from the original 320,000 points to the current 390,000 points. Another thing is the chakra recovery speed. With his physique attribute increased from 18 points to 19 points, his body's ability to withstand pressure has been further strengthened. In this way, he can operate the chakra refining technique for a longer time every day. With a thought, Qingming began to close his eyes and refine chakra. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Soon, an hour passed. Qingming opened his eyes and nodded with satisfaction. After his test just now, he can passively operate the chakra refining technique for about 16 hours a day in the future, 1 hour more than before. And in 1 hour, he can recover 2,000 more chakra points. In addition, there is the speed at which the body naturally recovers chakra. Qingming glanced at the amount of chakra added on the panel in the past hour, and after a little calculation, he came to the conclusion that his body can recover 50,000 more chakra points every day. That is, from the original 200,000 points to 250,000 points. Although this increase is not as good as the last 54,000 points, but again, the last time it was the spiritual attribute that broke through the 20-point mark. And this time, it was only the physique attribute that made a small step forward, and it is normal that the increase is slightly lower. When his physique attribute also breaks through the 20-point mark next time, the increase will definitely not be small. However, these are all later. Now, How to allocate the newly added 52,000 chakra points is the most important thing. With this thought, Qingming's eyes swept through the skill bar one by one. Finally, he stopped at Wind Style, Wind Wings, Heart-to-Heart Technique, and Shadow Clone Technique. Let's not talk about the first two. They are newly learned skills and urgently need chakra investment. Since his training returned to normal, the chakra allocated to these two skills has only been 7,000 points, which seriously slowed down their progress. Now, it's time to change. Qingming thought about it and decided to take out 33,000 points from the 52,000 points of chakra and distribute them equally to these two skills. In this way, each of them will receive 20,000 points of chakra investment, so that they can gain about 235 points of proficiency every day, and the growth rate will be greatly increased. As for the remaining 19,000 points of chakra, Qingming decided to take out 15,000 points and allocate them to the Shadow Clone Technique specifically for its level improvement. Before, although his proficiency was also increasing, it was mostly passively improved when performing the Shadow Clone Technique and practicing other skills. Now, he wants to improve this skill specifically. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399 Summary and Outlook. You ask him why he did this? The reason is very simple. After 2 days of in-depth research, he confirmed that the level 5 Shadow Clone Technique alone could not prompt him to complete the development of the Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. In this case, let alone developing the Shadow Sword Technique on this basis. To do this, he must first upgrade the level of the Shadow Clone Technique. Therefore, appropriate investment is necessary. In addition, there is the problem of coordination with the Wind Style, Wind Wings. Before, Qingming felt that he could not directly separate the Shadow Clone with chakra wings during the flight because the level of the Wind Style, Wind Wings was not enough. But after a long period of testing, he found that this was only a secondary reason. The most important reason was that his Shadow Clone Technique was not practiced well enough, which was why he could not perfectly replicate the current physical condition. Therefore, no matter what the situation was, he had to upgrade the level of the Shadow Clone Technique as soon as possible. With the investment of 15,000 chakra points, plus the passive improvement when practicing other skills, his Shadow Clone Technique should be able to gain 100 points of proficiency every day in the future. In this way, it will only take about 40 days for his Shadow Clone Technique to be successfully promoted. By then, whether it is the development of Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique on this basis, or the problem of coordination with Wind Style, Wind Wings, it will be solved. Not only that, as the level of Shadow Clone Technique is improved, he can further try to develop multiple Shadow Clone Technique. Now, his chakra amount has exceeded 100,000 points, which is enough to bear the consumption of multiple Shadow Clone Technique. Although this technique is not very useful to him now, when he is not short of chakra, it will greatly improve his training speed. And the time point when he is not short of chakra. Qingming looked up and looked in the direction of Takigakure village. As early as several months ago, he had already decided to make Nanabe, Jiming the priority target for capture. Now, the war is about to end. Once one of them is over, he will have more free time. Then, he can try to act. As long as he gets the 7 tails, he won't have to worry about the chakra problem in the short term. By then, it will be time for the multiple Shadow Clone Technique to take effect. And now is the time to prepare for a rainy day. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming forced himself to suppress the restlessness in his heart and turned his eyes back to the panel. Now, he still has 4,000 chakra points left. Qingming's eyes swept over various skills. It can be seen that they have improved greatly in the past month. Among them, Wind Style Shuriken directly broke through the level 6 level, and has made a big progress in the past half month, and the proficiency has reached LV7, 5,920,000. According to the current progress, he will be able to successfully upgrade to LV8 in a month. By then, he will be one step closer to mastering the skill perfectly. This speed is not slow, so there is no need to continue to invest in chakra. The other is Water Style, Water Array Wall and Water Style, Water Dragon Bullet Technique. The proficiency of both of them has increased by nearly 7,000 points in the past month. In at most half a month. they can be successfully promoted to level 7. And level 7 is almost the limit of these two skills. In other words, it will take less than half a month for his two skills to reach perfection. Therefore, there is no need to invest extra chakra. Not only that, after these two skills are promoted, he will have an extra 40,000 chakra points to allocate. However, these are all later. Qingming turned his eyes away from water style, water array wall and water style, water dragon bullet technique and turned to look at another water style ninjutsu, water style, great samurai technique. Because this technique requires more chakra to practice once, it has only a proficiency of level 5, 3,200, 5,000, so far. Qingming decided that after he had perfected the water style, water array wall and water style, water dragon bullet technique, he would invest more in this skill. As for now, let's just leave it at that. Qingming's sight continued to move downward, skipping the shadow clone technique and chakra absorption technique, and his eyes stopped at the Rasengan. After a month of practice, his Rasengan had already broken through LV6 and reached LV7. At this time, when he cast this technique again, he could not only be more casual, but also further increase the chakra that could be condensed at a time. In other words, it was more powerful. Even more, his proficiency in chakra control was improved, directly from LV5, 3,482, 5,000, to LV5, 4,555,000, and it was not far from being promoted to LV6. And after his chakra control was promoted, he could mobilize more chakra when casting various ninjutsu. In this way, the power would naturally increase further. It can be said that this is an opportunity for comprehensive improvement. Qingming was looking forward to this. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming set his sights on 3 medical ninjutsu chakra scalpel, palm fairy technique and thin injury extraction technique. Originally, his chakra scalpel should not have much change in proficiency because there was no chakra investment. However, after the attack on the Eagle Cliff stronghold, he frequently used this skill to heal the surviving Konoha ninjas. Therefore, his proficiency directly increased by a large margin, reaching nearly half of the level 6. As for palm fairy technique and thin injury extraction technique, the proficiency increased slightly more than expected due to the treatment that day. The former, plus the accumulation of the past month, is already at the level of LV8, and the progress is more than half. The latter has directly reached LV5, 4,100, 5,000, and is only 900 points away from being promoted to LV6. According to the current investment, it will take at most half a month for it to be successfully promoted. Qingming is quite satisfied with this. So there is no need to invest extra chakra. Finally, he set his sights on the illusion sword art and instant sword art. Among them, the illusion sword art was promoted to level 7 early, giving him one more perfect skill. As for the instant sword art, it was used less in recent battles, and there was no chance to practice in the past few days. Therefore, the proficiency of the skill increased mediocrely, only reaching level 6, 5,500 10,000, and there is still a distance from the perfect state of level 7. In this regard, Qingming can only say that there are gains and losses. However, it is only less than 5,000 points of proficiency. Slowly grinding. He can also grind it to the perfect state. After looking at it this way, the remaining 4,000 points of chakra, he can only use it to develop Earth Attribute Chakra. Coincidentally, this is also his original plan. With these 4,000 points of chakra, plus the book sent by the Uchiha clan, Qingming feels that it will not take long for him to break through the pass and successfully develop Earth Attribute Chakra. By then, after learning Earth Escape, Hardening Technique, Earth Escape, Earth Flow Wall, and Earth Escape, Earthlands, some of his shortcomings will be made up and his strength will be further improved. Chapter 400, each with his own agenda. After some imagination, Qingming closed the proficiency panel. Then, without saying anything, he raised his hand again to seal and cast the ninjutsu, palm immortal technique, and began to strengthen his body. He needed to confirm that after the physique attribute reached 19 points, how long would it take to transform again? Rich Yang escape chakra condensed out, and Qingming concentrated on guiding them, constantly invading various parts of the body, causing those cells to evolve. Time passed by minute. In a blink of an eye, more than 2 hours passed. Time came to the afternoon. Suddenly, Qingming opened his eyes. An unconcealable fatigue flashed in his eyes. Qingming forced himself to be alert and carefully felt the changes in his body. After more than 2 hours and nearly 50 times of strengthening, he vaguely felt some progress. However, compared with the past, this progress was too small, and it was not enough to estimate the time required for the next transformation. After thinking about it, Qingming opened the main Gekyo Sharingan. Then, he activated a pupil technique that resided in his right eye, human control. With the help of his unique power, he instantly saw through his whole body and accurately assessed the progress this time. After releasing the human defense and closing the main Gekyo Sharingan, Qingming murmured, 2 months, that's right. According to his estimation, according to the current strengthening frequency, it will take about 2 months for his body to reach a new critical point. At that time, he can try to break through. How to say it? This time is not short or long. It depends on who you compare it with. Compared with his past, the time required for this transformation is indeed a bit long. However, compared with other people in the ninja world who are stuck by talent and qualifications, the mere 2 months is nothing. Anyway, Qingming still has this patience. With this thought, Qingming no longer thought about it. After getting up and washing his face, he returned to bed and began to sleep and rest. Now there are only less than a few hours before nightfall, and he must get enough rest before the mission. Hurlu soon, a subtle snoring sound was heard. It only took a few breaths for Qingming to fall asleep. In a flash, time came to night. Outside the black stone stronghold. In the sky. There was still some distance from Fiayu town. Qingming suddenly turned around and flew towards the open sea. About a quarter of an hour later, he came to a place about 30 kilometers away from the coastline. Here, there is a flattened reef beach. Qingming looked down from a high place, opened his Sharingan, scanned the area, and after confirming that there was no one within a few kilometers, he fell straight down. Standing on a somewhat slippery reef, Qingming did not waste time, and directly crossed his hands, formed the character seal, and performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. Bang! Accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke, 10 shadow clones appeared in the field. Qingming did not waste any words, and directly assigned 2 of them to practice wind style, Rasenshuriken, and another person to practice Rasengan. Then, he asked 3 people to practice water style, water array wall, water style, water dragon bullet technique, and water style, big shark bullet technique. As for the remaining 4 people, he picked 3 people again to practice fine extraction technique, heart-to-heart technique, and instant sword technique. The last person was asked to develop Earth Attribute Chakra. Looking at the busy 10 people, Qingming nodded with satisfaction. This is what he did in the past 2 days. In this way, he can keep up with the progress of practice during the mission. Although this requires him to come here every hour to digest the relevant experience and memory, and refresh the status of these shadow clones. However, compared with the gains, a little trouble is nothing. What's more, with the existence of wind style, wind wings, this distance is not a big trouble. By the way, he can also take this opportunity to brush up a little more proficiency in wind style, wind wings, which can be said to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming did not delay any longer. He formed seals with his hands and performed the wind style, wind wings. Then, he flapped his wings and flew towards the direction of Fiayu town. Next, he would go to carry out the mission, on the other side. Fiayu town. Central location. In a building, more than a dozen mist-hidden ninjas gathered together, seemingly discussing something. After a moment, the mist-hidden ninja sitting in the first place concluded, since everyone agrees, then everything will go according to the plan. As he said that, he looked at the person on his right and said, Qing, this operation will be led by you. Yes, Captain. Hearing this, Qing, whose right eye was wrapped in black cloth, immediately stood up and responded. Very good, everyone go down and prepare, the leading mist-hidden ninja said again. Yes, everyone below responded in unison. Soon, Yano Chiaki was the only one left in the meeting room. He stared blankly at the front, and it was unknown what he was thinking. After leaving the meeting room, the others immediately prepared themselves under Qing's arrangement. This time, they wanted to deal a severe blow to Konoha's morale. And the way to do that was to get rid of Qingming, who came to harass every night. That's right, their target was Qingming. As a famous genius ninja of Konoha, if Qingming died, it would undoubtedly bring great negative impact to Konoha. Especially at this critical juncture when the war was about to start. Unfortunately, their ideas were good, but the results depended on their own methods. About a quarter of an hour later, Qingming came to the sky above Fiayu town. As usual, he opened his Sharingan and began to observe the movements of the mist ninja below. It was not until the second half of the night, when the intelligence had been collected and the mist ninja was in the most sleepy time, that he began to act. He dived down and went straight down. When he came to the top of a building, he threw the kunai in his hand. Sparks flickered on the kunai, and a detonating talisman burned quickly. Just as the kunai was about to hit the roof, suddenly, a kunai appeared out of thin air and flew towards the kunai thrown by Qingming. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. The two kunai met in the air, and sparks were produced by friction. The kunai thrown by Qingming was knocked away, and with a bang, it turned into a bright flame in the air. In an instant, the entire Fiayu town seemed to come alive. All the mist ninjas, whether they were resting or on night duty, walked out of the bunker and looked over here. However, there was not much panic in their eyes. It was not that they were careless, but they were used to it. Since the reconnaissance mission, Qingming would do this almost every night before leaving. At first, the mist ninjas were still a little panicked, but after doing it many times, it was just like that. And the reason why Qingming did this was not to harass, but mainly to destroy those crossbows. Although their threat was not great, they were still somewhat threatening. So, he wanted to destroy them completely before the war began. Unfortunately, I have never been successful. However, it seems that there is some chance today. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.